Hey guys, this is Star What If. How are you all? Please support to subscribe this channel for watching new interesting stories. This video includes a self-shadowed human introduction in the first 30 seconds, followed by AI generation for creative scheduling purposes. So in this video, we're gonna see second part. What if Harry Potter embraced the darkness and rose as the new Dark Lord? But before we start, if you want more stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe this channel and share with your friends. Now let's start the video.
Here is short summary. After uncovering the lies shaping his life, Harry turns away from the light and embraces the darkness that has always called to him. No longer a pawn of Dumbledore or Voldemort, he rises as a new Dark Lord, one who will reshape the wizarding world by his own rules. But before we start, if you want more stuffs like this, then please support to subscribe this channel and share with your friends. Let's start the video. Sirius Orion Black. To some, he was an infamous name associated with many things depending on whom you talk to. Marauder, prankster, best friend, ladies man, animagus, party goer, happy-go-lucky big kid. The names went on, but lately, people had given Sirius Black new titles. Betrayer to Lily and James Potter. Source of the orphaning of Harry James Potter. Murderer of a dozen muggles and a known wizard friend. Peter Pettigrew. Servant to the Dark Lord. Slytherin in Gryffindor's clothing. The list went on, and yet, in light of those words and titles, Sirius knew that only one was right. He was a servant to the Dark Lord. Just not the one that people thought he was. When he was younger, Sirius had become a bit of a rebel against his parents' pureblood dogma, but that didn't mean he didn't take any of it in. When he'd been sorted into Gryffindor along with James Potter, Lily Evans and Remus Lupin, it had been a time of disaster for the Blacks. Sirius' own mother, Walburga Black, had threatened her son with a disowning on many different occasions until the day of Sirius' 16th when, at long last, he was able to give his mother the finger and walk out. Being asked to become James's best man had been the greatest moment of Sirius' life after that, or so it had been until the day where Lily had announced she was pregnant with a baby boy and asked Sirius to be godfather. Seeing that small tuft of jet black hair on the day of the boy's birth and those cute, innocent emerald green eyes had been Sirius' one and only greatest memory. He'd held little Harry in his arms and made a solemn vow to both Lily and James that he would protect their child with his own life and, in the event that they could not, he would care for Harry like he was his own son. However, then had come the accursed prophecy, then had come the war. Then had come the traitor Pettigrew and the action of Sirius forgetting his vow and choosing vengeance over duty. It was a memory that haunted him each and every day of his incarceration in Azkaban. For nearly 10 years and more, Sirius had spent his nights looking up at the moon through the small cracked window in his cell and wondered what could have happened to Harry. What had become of those innocent green eyes and wild dark hair? However, on the 10th anniversary of Lily and James's death, Sirius had received a shockingly anonymous note that seemed to blow in off the breezes that surrounded Azkaban and, in an unfamiliar scrawl, there was only one message. The one you seek has become more than anyone else would wish of him. Fulfill your family's legacy and stay true, lest you risk losing him and yourself. It hadn't been signed, but Sirius had studied the past of the Black family long enough to wager what it meant. As a Black, he was privy to the legend of Lord Acheron and the powers of the Black Kaiser, but while he was in Azkaban itself, there wasn't much Sirius could do. Then, on what would be Harry's 13th birthday, Sirius found an opportunity when the Dementors of Azkaban suddenly started acting weird and the entire compound was forced into shutdown. Taking advantage of the confusion, Sirius had transformed and made a break for his freedom, his mind solely focused on one key priority. Finding the Black Kaiser, whom he'd managed to wager was none other than Harry himself, and pledging his life and soul in servitude as penance for the mistakes he'd made years ago. Sure, finding Pettigrew would make for a rather valuable bonus, but, for the first time in his life, Sirius let himself succumb to rule one of pureblood dogma. Family comes first. Everything else can wait. A light rainfall had descended over Great Britain on September 1st, giving an image of approaching darkness and foreboding that made a few people nervous while others merely saw it as a calm after the unearthly heat of the summer. However, within the magical world, the rain couldn't have been a more appropriate setting for the re-emergence of the Brotherhood of Shadows as they walked through the barrier between worlds, each of them making their way to the train for the start of their second and third years respectively. The only exceptions to this were those members of the Brotherhood whom were already on board and, As the secondary members found their leaders and elites in the compartment that they'd claimed, it was easy to see who the true leader of the pack here was. Hadrian Acheron Potter Black, the new Black Kaiser, sat against the furthest corner of the compartment, his eyes watching the rain outside while the seat next to him remained empty. He was already dressed in his Hogwarts robes, though there was a new addition to his attire in the form of a pair of black leather-style gloves that covered his hands, a pair of Antipodean opal eye-skin boots covering his feet while his dark hair framed his image perfectly. Opposite him and in the seat one over from where he sat, Pansy, Draco and Hermione had already arrived when the others turned up and, as they all looked upon their leader, it was the Dark Apprentice, Neville Longbottom, who spoke. "Do we have permission to join you, sire?" Neville, Lucian and Daphne. "Yes," Hadrian answered coolly, not even reacting to the presence of Lucian Drake amongst the ranks as he added, "Luna, Ginny, Theo, Blaise and Tracy take the compartment next door and keep an eye out for trouble." None of the Brotherhood made a point in arguing against his commands. They all knew that it was way too far past the point of no return for them to do otherwise. Dividing their ranks, Neville then watched as Pansy sidled up next to Hadrian, allowing space for the others to take their seats, though only Neville sat next to Pansy while Lucian and Daphne moved in next to Hermione and Draco. Once the train finally rolled out, Lucian cleared his throat before he asked, "Might I inquire as to why you want your disciples divided, my liege?" "Given the news we heard over the summer," Hadrian answered, his voice as cold and hard as ever, "I don't think that needs explaining, do you, Lucian?" "You mean Black?" asked Daphne, earning a of agreement from Hadrian, though none of the Brotherhood were surprised by his tight-lipped attitude. The changes that he had gone through over the summer were numerous. Becoming the Black Kaiser and coming into his true power had truly transformed the Slytherin King, though he didn't seem to be any less human or normal than he usually was. "What do you plan on doing about him?" asked Neville. "Nothing," Hadrian answered, now looking to the others and, in the process, revealing the slight golden-colored hue of his eyes that had come from venturing into the powers of darkness. "He is a Black, after all. No matter the truth about him, my plan is to let him come to me. If he follows the family and bows at my feet, then I'll let him live. If not, then I'll send him back to Azkaban and feed him to the Mara." Hermione shuddered at the mention of the shadow creatures that they had encountered while escorting their sovereign to his new realm. It wasn't something that one would forget so easily, but the sight of the Mara alone had petrified some of the Brotherhood to the point that they were gracious to whatever force governed fate for bringing them into Hadrian's circle. And in the meantime, Draco then added, his eyes slightly darker than normal thanks to the indulgences into darkness that Hadrian had shared with him, Pansy and Hermione as respected and honored members of the Black Family Alliance. "What do you plan on doing about other problems, Hadrian? We can't ignore that your transformation will turn a few heads, but what about those who would rather see you dead and buried?" "If I'm going to hell, then I'm taking them with me," Hadrian argued, his arms now folded as he remained as vigilant and commanding as ever. "But I will not let some Azkaban escapee turn me back into the old Harry. That boy died when those Muggle bastards left me for dead on the steps of an orphanage without so much as a source of warmth." The shudder felt by Hermione now spread to the rest of the Brotherhood before Pansy, gently laying her hand in her lover's, asked him, "Is there anything we can do to help you, Hadrian? You have our full support, no matter what you do." "Then," Hadrian replied, his voice softening for a moment as he savored the warm touch of his consort, "you can find out everything you can about Black and bring the information to me. I don't have time to be looking over my shoulder because some blind-sided fools believe that a madman has a chance of killing me." "We'll get right on that, my king," Hermione remarked, the others nodding in agreement before Hadrian returned his attention to the window as London started to leave them behind the train's path towards Hogwarts. Shortly after the trolley lady appeared and offered some treats for the group, Hadrian's eyes suddenly darted to the window before he whispered to the others, "Wands out and don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Drawing their wands, a feeling of dread suddenly settled in the bodies of the Brotherhood as they saw Hadrian lift one of his gloved hands, flexing the fingers as though holding back an urge to strangle someone. At the same time, a loud screech echoed through the train as the brakes slowed the progress of the train. "We can't be there yet," murmured Hermione, but she fell silent when she caught sight of Hadrian's eyes narrowing on the window. "And here I was hoping it was just a rumor," whispered the Slytherin King before, all of a sudden, the lights in the compartment flickered into darkness and, for everyone else,
A feeling of intense cold filled their hearts and minds.
However, for the Brotherhood, who'd spent the better parts of their summer within the darkness itself, the cold didn't even bother them, which gave Hadrian an opportunity to take charge again. Daphne, go and find the Slytherins and protect them, including your sister. Hermione, go next door and make sure the others are okay. As both girls left, Hadrian drew his own wand before he turned and, lifting it, he commanded, Veliera.
As the Brotherhood watched, a black ink seemed to fly from Hadrian's wand and splatter itself against the windows outside their compartment. Where the ink touched, a dark sphere started to form, bringing with it a strange red eye that looked at Hadrian expectantly. Go, commanded the Slytherin king, find those who have abandoned their post. Feed if you must, but drive them away from the students before any harm comes to those who serve me.
With a screech like a hawk finding its prey, the eyeball vanished into the shadows, leaving Hadrian to pocket his wand before he added, if you'll excuse me, I think I should see this for myself.
Be careful, Pansy remarked, earning a hum from the Slytherin king as he left the compartment, turning towards the front end of the train where he walked towards the cold. After a while, Hadrian stopped as a strange tingling sensation prickled the tips of the mark of Acheron on his spine. Lifting his wand once more, the Slytherin king turned and, opening a compartment door, he found a group of third-year Hufflepuffs with an elderly-looking gentleman with dark hair and darker eyes.
The man had his wand lit and, when he looked at Hadrian, there seemed to be a look of recognition filling the man's eyes before he addressed the Slytherin king. What are you doing out of your compartment?
Apparently doing what even the head boy is too lazy to do, Hadrian argued, letting a small part of his dark aura flare for emphasis as he added, protecting our souls from the Dementors. What's an adult doing traveling with students anyway? I can wager you're our new professor, but what are you doing here?
I always did enjoy the ride, the man answered, just as the lights in their compartment flickered into darkness. With a wide-eyed look up and down the corridor, the man demanded, look, Harry, we can talk later, but for now go back to your compartment. It's not safe here.
I am not Harry, growled Hadrian, turning to face the source of the blackness where a heavy wailing noise suddenly pierced the air, and I never run from a challenge. But, the man began, but Hadrian simply slammed the door before he pointed his wand into the darkness, his rage, anger and frustration powering his magic as he addressed the blackness beyond. I don't know what you're doing leaving your posts, but you should remember to whom you bow, he hissed, twirling his wand in a complex motion before he commanded, Expecto Umbrios. A blood-red mist flew from Hadrian's wand as he directed it at the darkness, the mist then transforming in mid-release until it took the form of a large red basilisk that slithered through the compartment with a hungry gleam in its eyes. Unless you want to die, leave now and do not attempt to harm these mortals ever again. Hadrian exclaimed, then aware of an ear-piercing shriek filling the train before several dark shadows flew past the windows, returning light and warmth to the compartment in the process. Rather than wait for any sort of adulation or graciousness for his actions, Hadrian then moved down to his compartment, a part of him aware of his shadow fiend returning to his side where it faded back into the blackness that it had been spawned from. Entering his compartment, the Slytherin king found his brotherhood gathered together, including a now shaken Astoria Greengrass, who gasped with awe and disbelief when she saw Hadrian returning. Nice to see you're feeling okay, Astoria, Hadrian muttered, moving over to his seat before he added, but fear not, for they are gone and shall not harm you or anyone else ever again. How do you know that, Slytherin king? Asked Astoria, her question earning a raised eyebrow from Hadrian before the younger girl was silenced by her sister's words. Don't ask questions he doesn't want to answer, Tori, Daphne warned her sister, when Hadrian can trust you, he'll tell you more, but for now, just let it go. Astoria nodded, but as she joined her sister in the compartment, the Brotherhood were then surprised to hear a low, cold chuckle escape Hadrian's body before he threw his head back and roared with laughter, each of the Brotherhood members looking to one another before they heard Hadrian speak. So that's what you thought would work, old fool. Sorry, but I've got you pegged before your plan has a chance to work. What do you mean, Hadrian? Asked Pansy, earning a smirking look from her king before he sighed deeply. I mean that Dumbledore. Kerr has tried to play me again, Hadrian explained, indicating the direction from where he'd come from as he added, he's hired Remus Lupin as our new professor of defense. Lupin? Asked Draco. Yes, Hadrian answered. The werewolf friend of my birth father and the only one who could possibly turn me away from getting close to the Black Lord once again. The Brotherhood knew without needing to say anything that Hadrian was more than ready to change his plans to suit this new revelation. After all, the Black Kaiser had the power to tame the dark spirits within creatures of the night, including werewolves. Very well, old fool, let the games begin again. Reaching Hogwarts, Hadrian was still in his darkened mind set about the revelation concerning their newest professor, but with the Brotherhood by his side, it seemed like he now had the allies and means to enjoy his time without needing to do much more than confront Mr. Lupin about his place at Hogwarts. Admittedly, the Slytherin King had to confess that it was a good move on Dumbledore's part. A good move, but a foolish one.
Bringing a blast from the past to Hogwarts at about the same time that Sirius Black escaped Azkaban to make sure Hadrian returned to the path of good. At the same time, Remus would incite a bit of trouble with Severus, which would lead to some old-time war wounds opening up for the potion's master. Then, with a few choice words and maybe the odd meeting, Remus would probably try and turn Hadrian towards the way of the Gryffindors while making sure that the Slytherins lost their king.
Yeah, it was a good move, except for one little thing. With Luna acting out in Ravenclaw, Neville and Hermione in Gryffindor and the majority of the Brotherhood in Slytherin, Hadrian had eyes and ears in 3/4 of the school and allied forces in Severus as well as Hogwarts herself. So while it was a good move, it was a foolish one because Hadrian would see the trouble coming before Dumbledore even had a chance to do anything to spark the fires of his plan. Climbing out of the carriage when they reached Hogwarts, Hadrian took a moment to stop and, moving to the front of the carriage, he lifted his hand and gently patted at the leathery snout of a horse-like creature with spindly legs, an almost skeletal body and leathery wings, his expression actually softening as he looked upon the creature. Such beauty, Hadrian whispered, earning a snicker from the equine creature, and such a shame that one has to witness death to see your glory. Talking to yourself now, Potter? Asked the familiar human foghorn voice of Ronald Weasley, earning a sigh from Hadrian while the Brotherhood, ever loyal to their king, moved to intercept the trouble while Ron added, You know they say that's the first sign of madness, but then again, you are mental hanging around with Death Eaters and freaks. And you are mentally challenged for not being able to open a book, Weaselby, Draco replied, his own eyes able to see the creature that his king was whispering to as he explained, because then you'd know that Thestrals pull the carriages of Hogwarts and not the great magic people claim to have witnessed. Thestrals don't exist, Ron laughed, but Hadrian just turned, the Brotherhood now stepping aside like a well-trained military procession as the Slytherin King approached his local village idiot. Tell me, Mr. Expert, Hadrian drawled, earning worrying looks from the group with the sarcastic barb in his tone, have you ever seen a Thestral?
No, Hadrian agreed, because to see them, one has to have witnessed death itself, but then again, from the rumors I heard on the way here, you may as well have seen death incarnate with those Dementors. Apparently, you were crying for Mummy and close to wetting yourself. That's not true. Ron scowled, but the Brotherhood's laughter covered up his exclamation while Ron added, anyway, if anybody should have been shitting themselves, it'd be you, Potter. Remembering the only event that nobody else could compare to. How'd it feel, remembering Mummy and Daddy like you did? The laughter died down. The Brotherhood's expressions turned to ice while Hadrian's eyes beetled with rage.
Actually, Weasley, Hadrian growled, flexing his fingers as he felt the dark power within him rising up, his voice like ice as he hissed, I didn't hear my parents when the Dementors approached and, do you know why? It's because some of us, unlike the cowardly retarded chickens that exist in certain parts of the school, had the foresight to look up the means to repel Dementors. No third year can repel Dementors, laughed Ron, but again he was silenced as Hadrian drew his wand.
Expecto Patronum. Unlike the Umbreo's version of the spell, it wasn't a basilisk that flew from Hadrian's hornbeam wand. Instead, a glorious white Chinese-style dragon flew from the wand and coiled around Hadrian protectively, much to the awe of the assembled students.
Sorry, Captain Obvious, but what were you lying? Asked Hadrian as the Patronus dissipated into nothingness, allowing the Slytherin King to move towards the door. All the while, leaving Ronald Weasley without a leg to stand on. That night, following the sorting ceremony and the accompanying feast, with Lucian Drake being sorted into Ravenclaw, much to the group's surprise, Hadrian took his usual seat of power within the Slytherin common room while, next to him, It was now Tracy's turn to address the newcomers. Thankfully, unlike the previous year, the posture of the Slytherin king flanked by his brotherhood seemed to be enough for the few new first years to get the message. Afterwards, Hadrian gave a command for Tracy to call someone to the main common room and, a few moments later, the brotherhood disbanded to their respected dorms while Ellen and Stephen Rosier both appeared before him, the two of them bowing before the king while Hadrian let his head rest against his hand in a look of relaxed focus. "Do you know why I summoned you here?" asked Hadrian. "No, sire," Ellen replied, then aware of the trembles from her little brother as she felt the greater strength of the king before her. "How about you, Stephen?" "And no, Highness," Stephen answered, his heart racing in his chest as memories of his warning from the king from last year passed through his mind. "Then allow me to explain," Hadrian explained, indicating Ellen first as he told her, "You, Ellen, as I understand it, are about to leave Hogwarts at the end of this academic year, correct?" "Yes, sire." "While you, Stephen, are now a second-year student, yes?" "Why yes, your majesty." "Then it seems that I am left with a dilemma," Hadrian remarked, using his free hand to pick a stray speck of dust from his trousers as he added, "Because last year, when you, Stephen, challenged my authority as the Slytherin king, it was only because your sister promised me that you would learn your place that I spared your life. Do you remember this?" "I have not and never shall forget, my lord," Stephen answered, his voice edged by fear as he knew that Hadrian's dilemma was centered around his sister's departure. "But when your sister leaves," Hadrian continued, his voice like ice as he asked, "tell me, my duplicitous, rebellious friend, what's to stop me killing you the next time you decide to raise the banner of rebellion against me?" "Nothing," answered Stephen, feeling a hint of the king's dark power roll over him as he answered. "Exactly," Hadrian answered, extending his free hand to Stephen and Ellen as he added, "and it is for this reason that I have summoned you both here. You see, Stephen, with me and the majority of the Brotherhood in our third year, there are certain members of the Brotherhood whom could benefit from protections, but I can't be in two places at once. So I need an envoy, an emissary, if you will. One whom is willing to pledge themselves to me and to my Brotherhood to protect and guard my dear Ginny and my Luna girl with their lives." "And, where do I come into this, my lord?" asked Ellen, then aware of her brother lifting his head to the eyes of the king. "I'm getting there," Hadrian answered, smirking with a hint of victory to him as he added, as one of fiery spirit and true possessiveness, "I have been keeping an eye on you, Mr. Rosier, and I have no doubt in my mind that you would make a fine bodyguard and study partner for my Ravenclaw friend and my Slytherin redeemed spirit sister. All I ask is a full wizard's fealty vow of servitude to me and to the Brotherhood, and not only will all be forgiven, but you will be free to call yourself one of my warriors. One of my knights, if you will." Stephen gasped with disbelief as he looked up to Hadrian, seeing the power of the king rolling off him in waves that had not been there before. "What do you say, Elle?" asked Stephen, looking to his sister, but Ellen shook her head as she indicated Hadrian. "It's for him to decide now, Stevie," she answered, her voice trembling slightly as she added, "I do leave at the end of the year and therefore would not be able to protect you if you crossed him again. What he's offering you is not something he can give lightly. Trust me, I know. I mean, I'm a higher year as are the likes of Bletchley, Flint, Caro and Bowl, and none of us have been given this privilege. So choose your words carefully."
Sound advice, Ellen, Hadrian replied curtly, looking back to the still trembling younger Rosier as he asked, "Well, Stephen, what will it be? Servitude and alliance to the Brotherhood, or should I find the nearest funeral parlor and have you measured for a coffin?"
"No," squeaked Stephen, before he cleared his throat and added, I mean, no, my lord. There's no need to do that. As I said to you, I have not forgotten and never shall forget what happened to me because of my arrogance. My nights afterwards were plagued by nightmares, and, when the house worshipped you last spring, I was one of those who went as far to prostrate myself before you. I saw that I was wrong to challenge you. You are the Slytherin king and I would be honored to be considered worthy to join your ranks. Then go to your dorm and do not leave until I send for you, Hadrian commanded, earning a nod from Stephen while the king lifted his hand and beckoned to Ellen. As for you, Heiress Rosier, come forwards.
Stephen left the annex for his dorm while Ellen approached, her eyes looking deep into the eyes of the king as she asked, "Why yes, your highness."
Though you are about to leave our ranks, Hadrian explained, I do not want you to think that you are going to be free of my presence. For you see, I know that both your mother and father are named associates of Lord Voldemort and that your father pleaded to being under the Imperius while your mother was sent through the veil. Am I wrong? No, my lord. So tell me, Hadrian continued, now folding his arms with an air of power that, in her 3 years, Ellen was not a stranger to. When you leave our little band and join the ranks of the sheep and the fodder, what do you think would happen if, say, a certain someone whom many call you know who returns? Ellen's eyes were wide with terror, but she answered as honestly as she could as she explained, I would I imagine that my father would try TT to return to him and BB become one of his circle once again. And you? I would probably be SS strong-armed into B being a Death Eater and given to the M male members for enjoyment. Ellen swallowed hard at the very thought of it, but it was Hadrian's next question that silenced everything for her. What would you be willing to do to avoid that fate? The Slytherin 7th year's eyes were like saucers as she saw Hadrian look upon her not with malice or command, but with an air of warmth and compassion that, as far as she was aware, was only ever saved for the inner circle of his brotherhood. Blaise Zabini, Pansy Parkinson and Draco Malfoy. On the other hand, while the question had knocked Ellen for 6, she had to confess it to herself that she didn't have an answer for him and he must have seen it as he asked, well Ellen, what would you do to avoid such a fate? It was in that moment that Ellen Morticia Rosier felt like she had suddenly been enveloped by a dark light. A dark light that shone on her like a spotlight, filling her heart and soul with a darkness that she had never experienced, not even in her younger years when she had been subjected to curses and mental torments for her father's pleasure in teaching her about the power of the dark. Within this light, Ellen saw her brother, standing tall and proud, a warrior and a dark knight to the Slytherin king. She saw the enemies of her past and her future, including her pure-blood, feminist father, begging for mercy, and she saw her future as somebody more than practice for junior male Death Eaters and enjoyment for the elder ones. Within this light of revelation, the Slytherin elder had her answer, anything. Would you be willing to step away from his path for this? Yes. Would you obey and ensure the reign of the king? Yes. Would you kill for it? Yes. Would you die for the king?
Yes. And would you kill in his name? Yes.
In that case, Hadrian's voice seemed to cut through the darkness that had shrouded Ellen, the Slytherin girl's hazel-colored almost edged by a sliver of emerald that seemed to slither through her like a serpentine parasite as his voice told her, I will give you the means to escape this fate, but once my work is done, you will be mine.
You shall join and serve my brotherhood not as their practice nor their sensual South Avenue, but as one of their number. Your enemies shall cower before you and your rewards shall be yours in their thousands. What say you?
Yes, Ellen replied, lowering herself to one knee before she felt a black, leather-like appendage grip her hand as she spoke. I, Ellen Morticia Rosier, do hereby pledge my life, my magic and my fealty to the Brotherhood of Shadows and to its king, Hadrian James Potter. Forever do I pledge to do whatever he asks, to follow his creed and his ways through hell and back and make his enemies my own. My wand is his sword, my body is his shield. So I swear it, so mote it be. So mote it be, Hadrian replied, feeling the magic of Acheron swarm around them as Ellen became the newest acolyte of the shadows. As she gasped in shock, feeling the dark power course through her veins, Hadrian retracted his gloved hand, the shadows changing him back into his more humane appearance as he told her, Rise, my dark maiden, the shadows await you.
Yes, your majesty, Ellen replied, rising on command before she lifted her sleeve, expecting to see a symbol like the dark mark.
When all she saw was pale flesh, Hadrian allowed himself a smirk as he told her, You are marked as mine, Ellen Rosier, but not like Voldemort. When you leave these walls, you will be my eyes and ears outside along with others whom you consider worthy to join my ranks. I have plans concerning that half-blooded pretender that cannot be halted by anyone. Will you do whatever is necessary to ensure my victory? I will, my king, Ellen replied, lowering her sleeve before she asked, May I speak freely, sire?
Of course. Why did you ask my brother to leave if all you were going to do was anoint me as one of your brotherhood? Because he needs to see that what I'm about to do is, as a certain someone I know and loathe would preach, for the greater good.
And what is that? Asked Ellen. With a shark-like smile, Hadrian met her eyes before he answered, I'm going to kill your Death Eater father and, as your king, I am ordering you to assist me, Ellen. There was a moment of silence from the Slytherin 7th year before she lowered herself to one knee, her hand over her left breast as she addressed Hadrian's command. "What is thy bidding, my master?" After converting the Rosier siblings to his cause, though he kept the knowledge of Lord Rosier's soon-to-be execution between him and Ellen for now, Hadrian spent most of his time working on the next phase of his plan. Getting to meet Remus Lupin without directing the conversation towards his apparent will never be returned to the Gryffindor in him. Thankfully, or maybe it was just coincidence, but one such opportunity presented itself in the first defense lesson that Hadrian and the Brotherhood had with Remus. As Hadrian had guessed, the defense lesson was also with the Gryffindors, though the Slytherin King paid the crimson-decorated students very little attention, except for Neville and Hermione as the duo joined their brothers and sisters in arms. At the same time, Hadrian saw a rather curious-looking glance sent in his direction from the mousy-haired Seamus Finnegan, the eyes of the Irish-born half-blood filled with a hint of wonder as he saw how close Hadrian was to his allied forces. While the group waited for Remus to arrive, a part of the Slytherin King feeling a bit annoyed at how their professor kept them waiting, he leaned over to Tracy's desk before he indicated Finnegan as he addressed her. "How goes your work with him?" "Ever since our first lesson back in our first year," Tracy explained, her voice low as she didn't want to attract attention from the others. "He's been attending study sessions with me outside of classes and he actually seems to like spending time with me despite my being a Slytherin. Last summer, before the end of term, he told me how he'd appreciate a chance to meet the one who convinced a Slytherin like me to work with a half-blood Gryffindor like him."
So he wishes to meet me. Yes, Hadrian. Do you think he's worthy of my time?
"Yes." "Why?" "He has a talent with charms that not many of our group could equal, not even Drake," Tracy answered, earning a smirk from Hadrian as he thought how upset their newest third-year acolyte would be with this information. "Anything else?" "He thinks Weasley is annoying and actually helped Ginny adjust to her new life and name when Luna's father adopted her last year," Tracy added, earning a smirk from Hadrian before she added, "He also has a strong affinity with potions prep work that he says comes from months of studying Muggle chemistry or something like that." "I see," Hadrian muttered. His train of thought slowed down slightly as the door opened and Remus walked in. With a look of disbelief at the man's careless attitude for his students' educational needs, Hadrian returned his attention to Tracy as he told her, "Find out if he's had his Hogsmeade slip signed and tell him I want to meet with him on the first weekend at the end of the month." "Yes, Hadrian," answered Tracy as Remus informed the students that their lesson would be a practical one. Leading them out of the usual defense classroom, Remus took them down the corridor to what looked like the staff room and, when they entered, the students were surprised to see a large wardrobe there that trembled threateningly. "Does anyone want to take a guess at what's in there?" asked Remus once everyone was assembled. "That's a boggart," answered Theo, earning a nod from Remus while Hadrian raised an eyebrow questioningly. "Does anyone want to tell me what a boggart looks like?"
Nobody knows, Hadrian answered simply. Boggarts are shapeshifters that take on the form of what frightens a person most. They usually dwell in thick forests like the Black Forest or the depths of the Amazon, waiting to spring out on unsuspecting travelers. They're also used in curse materials for tomb protections and even as traps for treasure chambers.
"Interesting explanation, Mr. Potter," Remus replied, but Hadrian didn't react. 10 points to Slytherin. "That's 5 to Mr. Nott and 5 to Mr. Potter. Now, for an added 10, can anyone tell me what the counter spell is to repel a boggart?" "Ridiculous," answered Neville, earning Gryffindor the 10 points as he added, "but a boggart can only be repelled. There have been attempts to destroy them, but they've all been put down as dark magic because they involve blood and soul magic." "An extra 5 points for that answer, Mr. Longbottom," Remus remarked, a little impressed by the knowledge of this small gathering, but he was more surprised by the careless, even callous attitude of the boy he'd once called his cub. Even worse, Severus had warned him that he was to address the boy as Hadrian or Mr. Potter and not as Harry.
Slytherin, Remus could accept. Head of his own little gang of friends and allies, he could understand.
But this noble, cold attitude that would make Voldemort look as threatening as a beepcat. It frightened Remus to think of what his cub had gone through. "Now," Remus continued, "if you'd all form a line, I'd like to see how you do with the ridiculous jinx. Rest assured that I will be here at all times in case of extreme fear or submission before what you will see, but kindly remember that what the boggart represents is merely an illusion. It cannot physically harm you." No, it can just make sure you don't sleep for a week, muttered Hadrian, earning a few sniggers from the Brotherhood as they fell into line. Watching the group go, Hadrian was amused to see that Weasley's biggest fear was spiders and, when he hesitated, it had taken Lupin reminding him that he needed his wand at the ready before Weasley had made the spider roller skate across the floor, very badly. Parvati Patil's greatest fear seemed to be a snake, but when she cast the spell, it changed into a jack-in-the-box before she moved on, allowing the first of the Brotherhood members to appear. Hermione. The jack-in-the-box seemed to take a long time to decide before it finally shifted and changed into a figure that had many of the students screaming, but Hadrian didn't know whether to be angry or just plain amused with what he saw. It looked like some sort of cross between a scorpion and a wyvern. A triangular-shaped head with mandibles for jaws and eyes that were as black as night was connected to a body that was egg-shaped and covered in black scales with a ridged, almost skeletal underbelly, a pair of leathery wings unfurling from the spine. 6 spindly legs hung from the creature's lower body as well as a scorpion's tail with 3 prongs that clicked together loudly, ready to strike.
While the class screamed, Weasley fainting while McLaggen made a remark about what the bloody hell that thing was, Hadrian took his chance and stepped forwards, linking his hand with Hermione's and causing her to look at him.
With me, you will never be threatened by them, he told her, indicating the creature in front of them. Change it and make it tame. Hermione nodded before she lifted her wand and, with Hadrian's company empowering her, she commanded, Ridiculous. The creature, which members of the Brotherhood knew to be the menacing, ancient dark creature known as the Mara, gave a loud shriek before it changed into a small black kitten that rolled onto its back playfully staring up at them with loving eyes. Good girl, Hadrian remarked, stepping in front of Hermione while the kitten looked up at him. A feeling of intense cold seemed to pass through the room as the class waited before, at long last, the boggart changed and, for the first time, it split itself in two. One part of it became a tall man with dark hair and dark-colored eyes behind wire-frame spectacles and dressed in Gryffindor robes. The other became a red-haired, green-eyed woman also dressed in robes and looking at Hadrian with tears of sadness before a voice broke from the boggart. You failed us, Harry, Boggart Lily Potter told the still, unmoving form of her real-life counterpart's son. It's your fault we're dead. If only you had died, then all would have been well. And you now disgrace us, added Boggart James Potter. You ally yourself with Slytherins, break bread and share rooms with our murderer's offspring, and you actually call yourself their leader. You were never worthy to be our son. We're glad we're dead. Excuse me? Asked Hadrian, almost laughing with the incredulous inability of it all. But is this really the best you can do? My greatest fear is a dead woman and an imbecilic prankster of a dead man. Well, you know what? This really is ridiculous. The spell struck the boggart pair so hard that it reunited them into a single form. A green-robed form with white hair and dark eyes that smiled fondly before he bowed to Hadrian and vanished with a pop, his essence returning to the cupboard as Hadrian turned before he asked, End of the lesson then? When Remus dismissed the class, Hadrian told the Brotherhood to wait for him outside before he slammed the door, locking it in the process and, turning to face his professor, he asked, So tell me, whose idea was it to jinx the boggart to change into them? Hadrian, Remus sighed, looking to the spot where the ghosts of his best friends had been. I promise you, I had no idea of what it would turn into. Bullshit. Snapped Hadrian, using his magic to release the boggart once more, but this time, it changed into a full moon, which had Remus cowering before the glow it gave off. Let's see how you like it. To be used by fear and darkness because a senile old fool can't take a hint. Hadrian, grumbled Remus, his voice garbled by a bestial growl as he pleaded, Please, we can talk, I'm not your enemy. No, Hadrian agreed, you're just here because Dumbledore wants you here. He wants a weakling for a Gryffindor rather than the king that I have become. Well, I'm sorry, Remus Lupin, but I refuse to let him win. And any ally of Dumbledore's is not my ally, so you can cower here like the mewling quim of a puppy that you are, lycanthrope, because I am not going back to the weakling Harry Potter. I am Hadrian James Acheron Potter Black and I am what I want to be. Powerful. Stand in my way and you're digging your own grave. With that, Hadrian released a small piece of his bloodlust, frightening the boggart back into the closet before he turned and made for the door, pausing only once to stop and turn his head to Remus, his eyes shining with black malice. Tell anyone, especially Dumbledore. Cur, about this and you will beg for death. Then, while Remus felt his wolf side retreat back into the skin of the man, Hadrian left the room, his dark essence being felt by Remus no matter how far away he got. After sending the message to Remus concerning his power and his place in the world, Hadrian actually felt better about the year ahead. Together with his brotherhood, including his two newest members, and his studies, the 13-year-old Prince of Darkness felt like he could finally have a normal year, though not before he had done as promised and eliminated a threat to his power. Evan Rosier, Stephen and Ellen's father. Out of everything that the Black Kaiser knew that he'd have to do in the days leading up to his true ascension to power, he never would have imagined that he would get his first actual taste of bloodshed so soon, but, to save face, he also knew that he was out for the blood of his enemies so that his Dark Knight would take her rightful place in his circle. However, what he needed, above everything else, was a time for such an act of vengeance and bloodshed to happen. Thankfully, being a third-year student gave him such an opportunity. Everyone who has their permission slips, follow me. Those who don't, stay put. This was the command issued by Argus Filch as he led the third years down a safe path towards the village, the crisp autumn air adding to the effect of foreboding and death that lingered in the air. Having had his form signed by Lucius and Narcissa, Hadrian was not only eligible, but confirmed for Hogsmeade, though his interest was not in the historic and only magical settlement in Britain. No, for him, Hogsmeade meant that he could move without needing any sort of alibi and strike without mercy before appearing to return with the others after taking care of some business. However, on the road down to Hogsmeade, the Slytherin king then noticed something amiss that distracted his attention from the bloodshed that he was about to take part in. Stopping just before the edge of the village, he turned to face a worried-looking Draco and, without any real hesitation or care for excuses, he asked, "Where's Hermione?"
"Back at school," answered the Malfoy heir, earning a narrow-eyed glare from his king as he added, "Father provided her with the permission, but the old bastard got involved and said it wasn't a confirmed signature because of how nobody's heard from Hermione's parents since you helped her. Thankfully, Hermione's not an idiot and she's already made a move to contact Father and make sure that this is the only time that senile old fool can stop her."
"And therein stop me, right?" asked Hadrian, earning a nod from Draco before a smirk crossed the face of the Malfoy heir. "But being a Black Lord has its privileges for you, Hadrian," Draco explained, knowing that his mother had signed the slip with both her marital and birth names before sealing it with the Black family crested seal. As far as Hadrian's freedom to come and go from Hogsmeade was concerned, Dumbledore didn't have a leg to stand on there. Making their way down to Honeyduke's sweet shop, Hadrian stopped just shy of the door before he turned to face the assembled members of his court, his voice laced with authority as he told them, "I have business to tend to. As far as anyone's concerned, I'm with you and our plan is secure. Draco, you and Lucian will take care of Pansy and make sure nothing happens to her. The rest of you, do whatever it takes to make people believe that our little gang stands together." "Yes, Hadrian," chorused the court, each one of them watching as Hadrian waited for an opportune moment to don his invisibility cloak and, slipping through the village, he made his way up to the abandoned, derelict building otherwise known as the Shrieking Shack. Once through the gate and up into the building, Hadrian removed the cloak, using his dark power to store it safely away before he turned and examined the surroundings. There seemed to be a hint of pain in the air that drew the Slytherin king in like a moth to the flame, but the pain seemed to be less magical and more, well, more. Whatever it had come from, Hadrian didn't much care. For now, he had one key objective and that was to take care of the threat to the future of his brotherhood. Drawing his wand, Hadrian lifted it once before he commanded, "Umbra Phallocus." From the tip of his wand, a dark shape took form and started to spread out until it took the shape of a large black magical dome that surrounded the entire Shrieking Shack. With his ward in place, Hadrian lowered his wand before he closed his eyes, letting the full power of Acheron flow through him until, snapping his eyes open, the Black Kaiser started to transform. His skin seemed to become shrouded in darkness that hardened and covered his hands, arms, legs and feet in thick silvery black metal, the form of the metal being tinged with spikes as it moved up his body and over his chest. When this magic touched the mark of Acheron, the black tattoo seemed to link to the dark attire that was enveloping the Black Kaiser, turning the silver into a deep, menacing shade of red that was tinged with black, much like the fires of hell. Up and up this attire climbed, covering his body in its swathing embrace until it reached his head where a black helmet covered Hadrian's features, the tips of the helmet adorned by spiked horns much like those of the devil himself. Appropriate, Hadrian felt, for the Prince of the True Dark. Once his transformation was complete, Hadrian breathed in a sigh of relief and excitement that was tinged with a bloodthirsty snarl, the armor almost shimmering with malicious power at the feel of the dark magic within its master. At the same time, the Black Kaiser turned before he lifted his hand and, sweeping it aside, he watched as the door to the shack opened, revealing a frightened, but loyal-appearing Ellen Rosier, the newest Dark Knight falling to her knees in the presence of her king.
Master, Ellen remarked, earning a simple lift of the head from Hadrian as she addressed him. You look like the true darkness incarnate. Is it time, then? Yes, Ellen, Hadrian growled, his voice distorted by the armor that he wore. To a muggle, he sounded eerily, frighteningly similar to another dark lord of fiction behind that armor. Today, while my servants keep outsiders from questioning my place, you and I will end the betrayal to the dark of foolish souls like your father. Are you prepared to do what is necessary?
I am, my master, Ellen replied, before she lifted her head as she asked, Might I ask a favor of the Black Kaiser, master? Speak. The final blow, Ellen requested, please let it be mine, so that half-blood-worshipping freak knows that it was by blood that death has come to him.
A cold chuckle was Ellen's reply before Hadrian answered, The final blow shall be yours, my knight, but the pleasure of breaking your father's soul to the point where he begs us to kill him, this will be mine.
Then let me take you to my home, master, Ellen insisted, holding out her hand and, as Hadrian took it, the Dark Knight gasped as she saw the blackness of her master extend outwards to her, covering her robes in blackness that became sharp and menacing-looking, her eyes masked by what looked like a visor while a single blood-red letter X covered Ellen's left B, East area. As the new attire completed its transformation, Ellen looked into the darkness of the helmet before she gasped as both she and Hadrian vanished in a veil of black flames, the feel of her master's power actually bringing excitement and longing to Ellen's blood. However, she would never get the chance to sat that thirst with her master. There was only one whom belonged to him, after all, and she knew who that was. Given that the Rosier family were meant to be some mafia-like pure-blooded family, Hadrian was rather disappointed when Ellen's address for her home revealed not a mansion or manor estate or even a complex, but an ordinary-looking 3-story house out in the middle of the woods near the Peak District. There was nothing special or magical about the house at all. In fact, it looked more like somewhere that someone would go to run and hide rather than show their status in the magical world. Releasing Ellen's hand, Hadrian approached the house's entrance, his Dark Knight falling in line behind him where, as they reached the door, Hadrian lifted his hand and clenched it into a fist, the power flowing through his armor and blasting the door off its hinges. As he stepped into the house, Hadrian actually sniggered when he saw a lone gray-haired man standing behind the door, a wand pointed at the dark armored figure standing in front of him. Who the F.K. are you? Demanded the man, earning a growl from Hadrian at how superior he tried to make himself sound. Evan Deacon Rosier, snarled Hadrian, his voice distorted by the helmet and providing an air of cold to the room. You have failed the dark. You thought that cowering away like a mouse would save you. Well, you're sorely mistaken. There is nowhere you can hide where the dark cannot find you. You're working for the Dark Lord? Asked Evan, his voice squeaking with fright as he pleaded, Please, take anything you want. I remain loyal to him. Please, you can take him my daughter if you want, she's still untaken, so he wouldn't dirty. Quiet, snarled Hadrian, now pointing a single finger at Evan and, at the same time, a sickening crunch echoed through the halls of the house as the man's body twitched and contorted with painful visions. His eyes seemed to pop right out of his skull and his blood ran from wounds that didn't actually open, almost as though the blood had pushed right through the skin without tearing it. No, please, screamed Evan, then aware of the clothed figure by the side of this demon in front of him. Whoever you are. Stop, I'll do anything. You think begging can stop him? Asked Ellen, adjusting the tone of her voice to hide her identity as she asked. You who would sell out your family to save your own skin? Men like you are pathetic and not worthy to key his boots. Lowering his hand, Hadrian released Evan from the nerve-crushing hold of his dark power before he turned and, waving his hand, he summoned the man's wand to his hand before he handed it to his companion, his voice like ice as he told her, "Do what you desire, my knight." Make his screams be the last thing he says in this life. "Yes, master," Ellen replied, taking the wand before she stepped around Hadrian and, lifting the wand, she commanded, "This is for 16 years of shit, you insolent say. East bastard, Crucio." Hearing about the torture curse as he had done at a young age, Hadrian felt an air of amusement rise in him as he saw the power of the curse used against a human for the first time. Evan screamed himself hoarse and bled more profusely with the power of the curse targeting his bodily functions. At one point, the man vomited blood onto the floor while, all throughout his pain, Ellen screamed at him, "You would use me. Like I'm nothing more than a toy to be handed down. You don't deserve to live." What do you mean?" gasped Evan, coughing up blood while Ellen released him from the curse. I've never met you before. How can I have? What did you, who? You know full well who I am, snarled Ellen, her voice edged by a rage that Hadrian had never heard from anyone, well, except himself back when he'd fought Voldemort for the stone, of course. Think, you sick, perverse son of -a-by.ch. Who else could walk through your precious alert wards unannounced? It was then that she ripped the mask from her face and, letting it fall to the floor, she lifted the wand and hissed, "This is the end for you, Daddy. Selling yourself out to a half-blood, I can forgive. Wanting to sell me to them to save your own skin, I will never allow. My only master is him," she indicated to Hadrian, who was blocking the only way out while his dark visage burned against the light of the room, "and I will aid him in anything he needs of me. I am not his South Avenue, I am his. I belong to him. As for you, there's just one thing left to say." "Ellie, please," Evan pleaded, but Ellen shook her head. "No, you don't beg your way out of this, monster," Ellen snarled, pointing the wand right between her father's eyes as she hissed, "Goodbye, Sniverecta." A sound like a bullet being fired from a gun left the wand and passed right through Evan Rosier's skull, painting the wall with his blood while the body fell to the floor, his eyes wide and glassy and his body unmoving. "Well done, Ellen," Hadrian remarked, approaching the girl and, taking the wand from her hand, he snapped it clean in two before he added, "You have proven yourself worthy of your place at my side. Now come. We have to return to Hogsmeade so that nobody grows suspicious of our actions." "I will follow you anywhere, master," Ellen replied, taking Hadrian's hand before they flamed away, the last dregs of the dark magic left by Hadrian being enough to torch the building to the ground as their flames took them away. When the Black Kaiser returned to Hogsmeade, having lowered his ward and stripped out of his armor, he left Ellen to sort herself out while he made his way to the Three Broomsticks where, as he'd guessed, the rest of the Brotherhood were there waiting, and they weren't alone. Sat with Tracy and Draco, enjoying a butterbeer while watching his surroundings, was the mousy-haired form of Seamus Finnegan, his eyes widening when he caught sight of Hadrian walking into the bar. Approaching the table, Hadrian ordered his own drink before he took a seat at the head of the gathering, his dark eyes watching the Gryffindor warily before he asked, "So, you've finally decided to approach me, Finnegan?" "Yes," answered Seamus, lowering his glass while Hadrian's order was brought over. Once they were alone again, the boy continued, "I owe you a great deal of thanks, Hadrian, for having one of your Slytherin friends helping me in my lessons, and so, after talking it over with Trace, I decided that it was about time you got to put a name to a face." "I see," Hadrian replied, taking a drink from the fresh lemonade that he'd ordered. He never really liked butterbeer for its thickness. While he also looked to Tracy, his voice soft but menacing as he asked, "I thought it was our agreement that you were to wait before bringing him before me like this? I have enough on my plate without." He trailed off as the door to the bar opened and, from the other side, Minister Fudge appeared accompanied by Hagrid, McGonagall and what looked like Professor Flitwick, all five of them attracting the attention of Madame Rosmerta, the owner of the bar. As Hadrian watched, the five of them headed upstairs, but Hadrian wasn't going to be denied this. Each of them had looks of fear and suspicion on their faces, and Madame Rosmerta had seemed to be almost anxiously looking around before she'd gone up with them. "Stay here," Hadrian growled, moving out of sight and, donning his cloak once more, he made his way upstairs, his weeks of training with the shadows helping to mask his breath and footsteps even under the cloak. Opening the door gently, Hadrian sidled in and remained in a corner, listening as Madame Rosmerta asked, "Now, what's this all about, then? Come on then, let's hear it." "Well, McGonagall remarked, unaware of the added number to their room. Years ago, when Harry Potter's parents went into hiding, few knew where they were. One who did was Sirius Black, and he told you know who. Hadrian felt his heart turn colder than cold as he listened to this. All summer long, he'd heard about Black, and now the truth was coming out. Avoiding contact with others, the Black Kaiser listened as Madame Rosmerta continued, "You know who. I've heard this rot. It was all over the Daily Prophet back in the day. And I'll say now what I said then. Of all the boys I ran out of here, Black's the last who would have gone over to the dark side. Hearsay. That's all the ministry had. Hearsay." "Ha!" laughed Fudge, pouring himself a drink as he argued, "Tell that to Peter Pettigrew." "Peter Pettigrew? Little lump of a boy?" asked McGonagall as though reminding the barmaid of this new name, always tagging after Black in. "I remember him. What's he got to do with it?" McGonagall's expression turned sour as she explained, "After the Potters were killed, Pettigrew went looking for Black, and, unfortunately, found him." Fudge seemed to pick up the conversation while, in his hiding place, Hadrian's fingernails were cutting into his palm with how tight he was clenching his fists. Black was vicious. He didn't kill Pettigrew. He destroyed him. A finger. That's all that was left. A finger. There's your hearsay. McGonagall shared a grim expression with Madame Rosmerta as she explained, "Sirius Black may not have put his hands to the Potters, but he's the reason they're dead. And now he wants to finish what he started." Harry. Hadrian felt an actual tear roll down his cheek, an anger like nothing he'd ever felt before surging through his veins as he listened to their conversation continue. But that's not the worst of it.
"What could be worse? This," answered McGonagall, her eyes filled with disbelieving fear as she explained, "Sirius Black was and remains to this day, Harry Potter's godfather." A clock appeared to chime and, as it did, Hadrian didn't even bother with subtlety. Grabbing his cloak's edges, he flamed out of there, the rush of magic ruffling the hair of the witches and wizards who looked around before Madame Rosmerta grumbled, "Such a drafty place."
Little did she realize that, at that very moment, she'd also just lost a few members of her patrons as, downstairs, the Brotherhood, including their hopeful new member, had all rose from their seats and ran out to the edge of the village where, just down the path from the Shrieking Shack, they found Hadrian. And he was pissed. His magic was flowing so freely that it hurt the hearts and minds of the Brotherhood to get any closer. The only one who seemed immune were Neville and Pansy as they approached, remaining far enough away in case Hadrian decided to turn his fire upon them. The killing instinct burned through the air like fire and, as he turned, sensing their presence, Hadrian's eyes appeared to be almost black as he snarled, "Leave me." "I'm afraid we can't do that, Hadrian," Draco argued, looking to his honorary cousin and friend as he explained, "We swore to help you no matter what. Did something happen back there?"
In response, Hadrian directed his magic right at Draco, who gasped suddenly as the key of the Slytherin king suddenly gripped at his heart, forcing the boy to his knees, his eyes wide with terror as he asked, "What? Have we done something to displease you? Tell us. We're your servants, Hadrian. Command and we shall obey." "How the bloody hell is he?" Seamus began, before he was cut off by Lucian's hand over his mouth, his eyes filled with foreboding as he shook his head.
"You're better off not knowing," warned the former Dark Lord, indicating the furious-looking Hadrian as he now lifted Draco off the ground without any effort on the part of his magic. "Not unless you're determined to join his brotherhood and forsake everything you've been taught about being Gryffindor."
Seamus could only watch as Hadrian, eyes blazing with dark magic, asked with an icy voice, "Did you know?"
"What?" gasped Draco, scrabbling for his throat as he tried to understand what he could have done wrong.
"About Black," snapped Hadrian, his magic cutting through the space around them as he asked, "Did you know that he was their friend?"
"Shit!" Neville exclaimed, putting his wand down on the ground before he rose and, holding his hands up, he remarked, "Hadrian. Listen. Whatever you heard, it doesn't matter, we're here for you. You've always said that you don't need Black to be whole. You command the house now, not him." "Neville's right," Pansy agreed, moving closer to Hadrian where she took his hand in hers before she added, "You don't need some prisoner of Azkaban to side with you to know you have power. Not when you have us, not when you have me," she finished, lifting his fingers to her lips where she keyed them gently. "But he was their friend," snarled Hadrian, his rage apparently ebbing away thanks to the support of his allies, and he betrayed them. He was their friend. The shout came with such a rush of magic that it sent Draco flying into a pile of fallen leaves, the Malfoy heir's arm colliding with the tree trunk with a sickening crunch. Following this, much to the group's shock, Hadrian suddenly collapsed, burying his head into Pansy's robes as he did so. Sensing what this was about, Blaise took charge of the situation as he commanded, "Everyone back to school. Now, as for you, Finnegan, make your choices carefully. You've seen the tip of the iceberg today. If you don't want to be like the Titanic and sink because of this, then you'll make the right decision. Drake. Longbottom. Take him back. Tracy and Theo. You help Draco back to Hogwarts and let Hermione know what's happened." As the Brotherhood moved to obey, Blaise turned before he kneeled down and, making sure that their friends were away from this, he gently held Hadrian with care and friendship, his voice soft as he told him, "It's okay, boss. Remember what we said? Around Pan and I, you can be as human as you want." I'm not shaking because of that," Hadrian told him, lifting his head where, to their horror, Blaise and Pansy saw Hadrian now bearing a pair of red eyes with strange black markings surrounding the pupil of his eyes as he insisted, "Because I realize it now. What I will have to do. No, what I'm going to do." "What do you mean?" asked Pansy, genuinely terrified of what she was seeing in front of her. It was like the demon that dwelled in Acheron's power was finally surfacing within Hadrian.
With this cold, bloodthirsty glare in his eyes, Hadrian exclaimed, "I hope he finds me, because when he does, I'm going to be ready. When he does, I'm going to kill him."
A dark feeling hung in the air as he said this to his closest friends and allies, its meaning emphasized by the sudden rumble of thunder overhead.
After witnessing the true strength of the Black Kaiser and Slytherin King, there were many within the Snake Pit who realized what a danger it would be to their health to challenge him this late in the game. The only time that any outside the Brotherhood now approached Hadrian, be it in class, in the corridor or even in the Great Hall, was when they had the Brotherhood's permission to be so close to their lord.
Within the Brotherhood, it was also now a case of keeping Hadrian's emotions either level-headed or in a state of mind that was beneficial to him. Be it through studying, meditations or just silent patrol like walks around the grounds of the school, the group of dark witches and wizards kept their company close to their leader, though if he told them to leave, they fled from him like demons fleeing a holy man. Outside Slytherin, things were also different for Neville, Hermione, Lucian, Luna and now, after confirming and swearing his loyalty to the Slytherin King, Seamus. The Irish-born student had approached the Brotherhood and, at Hadrian's permission, he had met with the Slytherin King and sworn his loyalty. When asked why he wished to cement his loyalty when he now knew and witnessed the bloodthirsty, ready-to-kill power of the Dark Sovereign, Seamus had lowered his head before he answered, "Because I believe that it is better to be at the devil's right hand than in his path. As long as I serve you and stay true to my vow, I am in the clear from having my blood paint the walls of my home. Doesn't mean I won't hesitate to kill you if you double-cross me," Hadrian warned Seamus, earning a nod from the Gryffindor before he added, "In that case, I place you under the watchful gaze of my apprentice, Neville. In Gryffindor, he is your liaison to me. Anything you wish to share with me can be told to him. I am currently in the process of making new accommodations for the Brotherhood to meet as one, but until then, you answer to him. Do you understand, Mr. Finnegan?" "Yes, my lord," Seamus answered, before he swore the same oath of allegiance to Hadrian that the rest of the group had sworn over the holidays. With days to go until Halloween, Hadrian felt a sense of satisfaction at the fact that his little army was slowly adding to his ranks. All he needed now was someone from Hufflepuff and he'd have eyes in every camp in Hogwarts. Which was why he was so surprised when Ginny requested an audience with him on the night in question. Given their past experiences with witnessing what the magical world did with a night of honor and sacrifice like Halloween, the Brotherhood, with permission from Professor Snape, were given the right to remain in the Slytherin common room on Halloween night of their 3rd per second years. As an added privilege to the night, Severus also told Hadrian personally that, just this once, he would allow the boys' Gryffindor and Ravenclaw allies to join them in their silent remembrances of the night. And so, in silent vigil that consisted of studying, meditations, note-making and working on homework assignments, the Brotherhood of Shadows gathered in the common room, each of them taking their respected places around the throne in the center of their group where Hadrian lay slumped in his chair, a book open on his lap.
Ever since forming the Brotherhood and adding to its members, a sort of inner hierarchy had been formed, and, if you looked at the Brotherhood's arrangements on that particular day, you could see just who fit where. Draco and Hermione, as Hadrian's cousin, sister, and closest black allies, were with Blaise, as Hadrian's general, and Pansy, as his consort, in the closest area to the throne, each of them watching the others as was their duty.
Below them, signified by the arrangement of their study circle, Daphne, Tracy, Theo and Neville were gathered together, the dark apprentice knowing that he would earn his place amongst the inner ranks when he truly proved himself worthy to his master. On the next tier of the Brotherhood were Luna, Lucian, and Ginny, while Seamus, Ellen and Stephen were the furthest from the throne, but also acted as the first line of security for anyone wishing to get close to the king. This was the way that they were arranged, and each member of the Brotherhood knew that this was not going to change unless Hadrian himself promoted you to the next rank of the Brotherhood.
In Seamus, Ellen and Stephen's cases, they were the lowest of the ranks, the rookie members of the Brotherhood, mere pawns and tools of the king that had an obligation to be ready, willing and able to be available to him at his whim.
Ginny, Luna and Lucian were the level above them, their rank and duty being his eyes and ears, his ghouls of the Brotherhood if you will. Their duty was research and listening out for trouble while standing together, keeping a close eye on one another. Daphne, Tracy, Theo and Neville were the second highest ranks of the Brotherhood. To Hadrian, they were knights of the Brotherhood, his first warriors and ones whom would be required to be Hadrian's line of defense and, in the case of Neville, his eyes, ears and voice to the members outside Slytherin and within his own house.
Finally, there were Draco, Hermione, Blaise and Pansy. These were members of Hadrian's inner circle and the closest acquainted members of the Black Kaiser's army. The elites of the Brotherhood. The best of the best, handpicked by Hadrian himself to be the driving force behind his dark prowess. They were the only ones who could freely approach, touch and address Hadrian as friends unless the situation called for it.
Though Pansy, as his consort and the dark female sovereign to the Dark Lord that Hadrian was slowly becoming, was also the high priority for Draco and Hermione to watch out for and ensure her safety. If anything happened to her, Hadrian would not be pleased. She was the first one to truly see the crack in his armor and allow him to show his humanity. She was his first true member of the Brotherhood and the one whom had seen both the light and dark sides of the Slytherin king. And so, when they considered these points about Pansy, it made sense to the other members of the Brotherhood as to why Hadrian had chosen her as his future Dark Lady. She wasn't love-bound, she was loyalty-bound, and she was his, and only his. After a short while of reading, Hadrian let out a sigh before closing the book he was reading and, adjusting his position so that he was sat upright in his throne, the Slytherin king looked to his forces before he asked, "All done?" "Yes, Hadrian," chorused the Brotherhood, knowing how wrong it would be to say no to his question. It didn't actually matter if the answer was no. If Hadrian put down his books or quill, so did you. That was just how the Brotherhood acted in their loyalties to the Black Kaiser. "Then let me take this opportunity to thank you for respecting the honor of this night," Hadrian added, leaning back in his throne as he settled into his persona of Slytherin king, his hands resting on the arms of his throne as he spoke. "I would also like to formally welcome our newest members into the Brotherhood and hope that each and every one of you stays true to your vows. I would hate to waste such good magic on trivial pursuits as your executions. Do I make myself clear?" "Yes, Your Majesty," chorused Ellen, Stephen and Seamus, all three of them knowing that, despite his apathetic tone and lack of actual threat in the way he said it, Hadrian always meant every word he said in warning. "Good," Hadrian nodded, looking now to his ghouls before he added, "Now, it may just be my imagination, but I sense that one of you three wish to discuss business with me, am I wrong?" "No, Hadrian," Ginny answered, stepping forwards before she bowed on ceremony to the Slytherin king, her voice low, but clear as she explained, I have a request to make of you that is similar to Davis's request for Finnegan to join our ranks. Found potential allies to our cause, have you, Ginny?" asked Hadrian, linking his fingers while Draco and Hermione pulled some chairs for the group to sit on. Aside from Hadrian, everyone else had been lying on their stomachs or sat in a lotus position while they studied. I know it's not my place," Ginny replied, looking up to meet the king's eyes as she explained. "I mean, I'm not one of your elites or knights, but when I was going through my bad time before Luna's father adopted me, they helped me out." "They?" asked Hadrian, raising an eyebrow as the group took their seats. "There's more than one?" There's 3 of them, Ginny answered. Her voice now devoid of shakes as she listed off her requested allies. Susan Bones and Justin Finch Fletchley of your year and Cedric Diggory of 6th year. I know Diggory, Ellen cut in, lifting her hand like someone wishing to speak as the conversation was diverted to her. He's quite the duelist and has a strong heart for those in trouble. Most of the girls here see him as a sort of Casanova. But the truth is that he's remarkably quiet and isolated, though he is the current seeker on the Hufflepuff Quidditch team too. And then there's Bones, added Draco, diverting the conversation his way as he explained. Her aunt is the head of the DMLE and she's quite the brainiac too. Sort of Hufflepuff's version of our Hermione if you ask me. If we could get her on our side, it would be a boon for our side, but... As you said, Hadrian cut in, the group's attention now diverted to him as he explained. Amelia Bones is the head of the DMLE. I can't exactly see her willing to bend her knee to a Dark Lord, not even if that lord is Hadrian Potter, the boy who lived.
He put on a face of extreme displeasure as he said this before shivering as he continued, what about the third boy? Justin or whatever. A proud spirit if there ever was one, Neville answered, looking his master right in the eye as he explained. However, he is not without his weaknesses. If you could turn him as you did Hermione and I, Master, you would have one monster of an ally and servant ready to obey your wishes.
But if I did that, Hadrian agreed, steepling his fingers as he addressed his apprentice, I would need to know him inside and out and not even my powers can read someone I have not yet had the pleasure of associating myself with. I was able to read you, Neville, because you had ties to my past and I read Hermione because of the similarities between her time and actions now and those of my dear Bellatrix back at school in her day.
Then what do you suggest, my king? Asked Ginny, trying not to flinch with fear as she saw those eyes turn to her.
Cedric and Susan have potential, Hadrian explained, his voice cold as he spoke to them, but not Justin. I have seen him in classes and, while his splendor would make for an interesting addition to our ranks, it would take too much time and effort before I made him mine. For now, we need someone to work on the Bones heiress and turn her not only against her aunt's beliefs, but against the light itself. Lucian could help, Luna suggested, glancing to the former Dark Lord as she added, your current self does have a history with them, after all. If you worked on that, got her to trust you and work with you, then her shield would fall and her spirit would belong to the Kaiser. An excellent suggestion, Luna, Hadrian smirked, indicating Lucian as he commanded, Drake, deal with Susan Bones and get close to her. Given the task and its difficulty, I will give you until the end of our 4th year to bring her before me. Do whatever you must, disband from the Brotherhood if it assists you, but make sure you never forget whom your true master is. Do I make myself clear? Yes, my lord, Lucian replied, bowing low with the receipt of his orders. As for Diggory, Hadrian added, now looking to Ginny, bring him to me. I think he deserves a 1-to-1 given how he has aided one of my own. Yes, Hadrian, heir, thank you, Ginny added, earning a curt nod from the Slytherin king before he rose from the throne. As the others went to follow, Hadrian held up his hand. No, you stay where you are, he commanded, the Brotherhood members then aware of a familiar icy cold falling around them as he added, this is something for me and me alone. What do you mean, Hadrian? Asked Seamus, but rather than answer, Hadrian simply left the common room, leaving a confused and worried-looking Brotherhood behind. The newest member's question now directed at his allies as he asked, what does he mean? He sensed something else in our talk, Luna explained, giggling to herself as she added, and now he has gone to hunt the prey he seeks.
What? Asked Draco. You don't mean, added Blaise.
I do, Luna replied, he's here, but whether or not he leaves alive depends on the words he says to our king. Who is she talking about? Asked Stephen, being the only one of the new members not to have been told the tale of Hadrian's promise in Hogsmeade. Sirius Black, Blaise answered, looking to the door as he added, he's here, at Hogwarts.
How? Asked Ellen. I don't know, Pansy replied, but something tells me that he'll be lucky to leave here alive.
Hadrian was silent, and deathly so, following the sense that his dark nature had picked up in the Slytherin common room. The Black Kaiser made his way out into the moonlit night, his eyes fixed on the darkness ahead of him as he crossed the courtyard, passed down by the hut of the gamekeeper, Hagrid, and reached the Whomping Willow.
Stopping in front of the willow, Hadrian smirked before he chuckled as he mused, so this is how you were going to do it, was it? Well, Let's see where it leads. Gathering his dark power, the Slytherin King pushed out with his magic, causing the willow to freeze in place and, at the same time, exposing a tunnel's opening at the base of the tree. Moving down into the tunnel, Hadrian transformed into the armored form he took as the Black Kaiser and made his way through the shadows, the feel of his revenge rising in him as he passed under the school's perimeter and, once on the other side, he was surprised, and a little impressed, to see that he had come out in the basement of the Shrieking Shack. Ready or not, Hadrian hissed, his voice distorted by his armor as he climbed the stairs. Here I come.
Climbing the stairs, Hadrian passed through the main hallway of the shack and up to a higher level where, as he opened the door to the nearest room, a snigger escaped him as he saw a makeshift campsite set up like something a squatter would use. A threadbare bedroll and low-burning campfire were set up near one window and, on top of a dusty chest of drawers, the Slytherin King's eyes caught sight of a clipping from the Daily Prophet resting against the edge, an image of a particularly large group of people now looking at him in shock and fear. Picking up the paper clipping, Hadrian's eyes narrowed under his helmet as he whispered, "The Weasley family. What would Black want with you blood traitors?" It was as he examined the picture closer that Hadrian then noticed that one particular member of the family had been circled with a magical quill. Ronald Weasley's fat, stupid rat. "Something's rotten in the state of Hogwarts," Hadrian whispered, putting down the paper clipping before, much like 2 years before, his attention was diverted by a cold breeze blowing against him, though he did not react. Instead, Hadrian let his armor drop, revealing the student underneath, before he turned and spoke to the newcomer. "So, Mr. Black, at last we meet, face to face." "Yes," replied the gaunt, slightly exhausted Sirius Black, his eyes looking into the green eyes of his godson with a mix of shock and warmth as he added, "Hello again, Hadrian." Looking around the room, Hadrian sniffed once before he asked, "You hid out here with the intent to come to Hogwarts and yet I am here, coming to you? Disappointed?" "Not really," Sirius answered, taking in the lithe, athletic frame of his godson as well as the sense of raw darkness in the air before he added, "In fact, I'm proud, and I'm glad that you're out here. Let me guess. You're alone? You think I need my allies to kill you for what you've done?" asked Hadrian, flexing his fingers as he felt the dark power of Acheron rise in him. "I know you don't," Sirius answered, lifting a hand and holding it out to Hadrian as he explained, "but, before you think of killing me, please, Hadrian, Black Kaiser, I beg you to stay your hand, at least before I lose my chance to explain things."
"Like what?" asked Hadrian. "You betrayed my family, your best friends, for the sake of that half-blood pretender, and then you murdered people in trying to ensure someone didn't get you first."
"That's only half true," Sirius argued, his eyes looking into Hadrian's as he lifted his other hand, which the Black Kaiser saw to hold a wand of Sirius' own, before he gave his exclamation, "I, Sirius Orion Black, do swear on my life and magic that I did not betray Lily or James Potter and that I do not have any intentions to harm, threaten or kill Hadrian Potter. By magic it is decreed, by magic, it is done." A bright flash of light filled the Shrieking Shack, the force of the light blinding Hadrian as he tried to pierce it, his mind racing with what he'd just heard. Why would he swear such a powerful and dangerous vow if he's guilty? Unless... Sirius' vow still rang in Hadrian's ears as he watched the light from the magical aftermath fade, revealing a still-alive Sirius Black, though he was now unarmed and on his knees, his eyes looking right into the green eyes of his godson as he spoke, "There, maybe now you will listen to what I have to say, Hadrian." "Start talking," Hadrian replied firmly, his words edged by darkness as, despite the vow, he still felt a desire to actually kill this man for what he'd done to abandon the family and, through them, Hadrian himself. "The day you were born, nearly 14 years ago," Sirius explained, keeping himself still and calm as he told his story, "is where it all really began as your parents, not long after that day, were approached by Albus Dumbledore and told of some reason for them to go into hiding. When they asked why, Dumbledore told them that it concerned you, their only son, and that it was for the greater good that they do as he said and go ahead with it. Meaning he convinced them using his manipulative old bastard ways." Hadrian scowled, earning a nod from Sirius as he asked, "So what? How did that lead to this?" "The Fidelius charm," Sirius explained, "it's a..." "I know what the Fidelius is, Sirius," Hadrian scowled, "I'm not some Freddy first year after all." Someone cast a spell of privacy and protection and thereby anointed a chosen member of my parents' circle as the appropriately mentioned secret keeper. I'm guessing that person was you? Correct, Sirius nodded, still holding his hands up as he spoke, but don't think that means I'm guilty of what they say I did, Hadrian. On the contrary, shortly after your first birthday, I was approached by your father and, for some reason I couldn't understand, he started yelling at me and telling me that he had trusted the wrong person. I had my suspicions, but I needed to know more and, when I approached Albus about this, he said that he'd had a word with James about me and said that it could be too obvious that I was the one protecting him. I didn't mean to do what I did next, but I did it anyway. I allowed Dumbledore to switch secret keepers from me to our lowest-ranked friend, Peter Pettigrew, and then I was banned from Godric's Hollow and told never to come near you until they were sure that you were safe. So Dumbledore struck again. Hadrian scowled, earning a raised eyebrow from Sirius before, to the Slytherin King's surprise, Sirius shook his head. No, Sirius explained, I asked Dumbledore and even went as far as enacting my right as Lord Black to force a magical oath out of him saying that he hadn't done anything to James to convince him of this. He was surprised at my ferocity, of course, but he swore the oath and, strange as it's going to sound, when he told me that he was simply asking this for your own good, I believed him also. So you switched to Pettigrew, Hadrian scowled, his voice now edged by a growl as he hissed, you still killed him, and 13 muggles, and left my parents to die because of a lie. Actions that I regret all the way, Sirius explained, but I did not kill Peter or those muggles. He did. Convenient, Hadrian snarled, almost glowing with dark magic as he exclaimed, you blame the dead for your own actions. Hadrian, listen to me. Sirius insisted, Pettigrew isn't dead. He's still alive. I tried to get to him tonight, but the portrait leading into Gryffindor Tower wouldn't let me in. I was angry and desperate, but I promise you that I am only out to clear my name and then, when all is said and done, I can come back, to you, to the Blackways, to our family. Hadrian's rage seemed to die in that moment, his eyes narrowed as he looked to Sirius, his voice soft as he asked, why are you doing this, Sirius? From what I hear, you're not exactly number one on the Black family's list of welcome people because of your defection to Gryffindor. Why are you so adamant that you come back to us? Because of you, pup, Sirius explained, his own voice now gentle as he explained, an anonymous benefactor informed me that you had become the Black Kaiser and, when I heard, I was scared, I won't deny it, but I also felt strength return to me as I knew you were alive and that you were all right. Yes, I failed Lily and James and I regret that each and every day, but my true loyalty has always been to you. I'm sorry I was so blinded by rage that I went after Peter, but please, let me find him now, clear my name and then, my pup, my Kaiser, I am yours to command however you see fit. For a moment, there was silence in the room that was broken only by the sound of the wind blowing outside and Hadrian's steady breathing, though there was also a look to Hadrian that Sirius hadn't seen before, curiosity. Finally, the boy spoke again, breaking the silence as he asked, why? I'm sorry, Hadrian? Asked Sirius, earning a shrug from Hadrian. Why were you scared? Asked the Black Kaiser. I mean, here I am, Sirius. I am more powerful than any ordinary 13-year-old wizard and I have the means to have an entire army at my command. All right, I haven't actually killed anyone yet, but that doesn't mean I'm exactly pure evil either. So why are you scared when I have become everything that your average wizard dreams of being in such a short time? Because I look at you now, Sirius explained, his voice tinged by a dark emotion that Hadrian couldn't identify as he told him, and I don't see my godson or the boy that Lily and James hoped to take his life to new heights and become the great wizard he could be. I see a Dark Lord in the making. Someone who's more like he's following the lines of Voldemort than actually taking charge of his own life. His words were cut off as a dark burst of magic suddenly knocked Sirius aside, his cheek now bleeding from the impact while, behind him, Hadrian hissed icily, you dare compare me to Riddle? I who have sent him running with his tail between his legs and managed to use the powers of true darkness to bring his former self to his knees before me as my servant and warrior? I am so much more than Voldemort and, if he ever came back as flesh and blood, I would destroy him? Asked Sirius, wiping his cheek before he asked, overthrow him? Eviscerate and obliterate him off the face of the earth? Is that what you're trying to go for, Hadrian? Exactly. But what does that get you? Asked Sirius, picking his wand up from the ground before he cast a quick cutting jinx on Hadrian's robe, revealing the boy's pale skin and blackened marks around his shoulders, ribs and arms.
Indicating these marks, while also noticing the rage in Hadrian's eyes at being attacked so weakly as though Sirius was mocking him, the Black Lord continued, "Look at yourself, Hadrian. You've become darker and more powerful than any Dark Lord before you, this I won't deny. But you're losing yourself. The calm, innocent soul that you once had has become consumed by this dark thing that's grafted itself onto you."
The mark of Acheron chose me, Hadrian snarled. I have been so very powerful ever since. Ever since the Dursley family abandoned you at Wool's orphanage? Asked Sirius, earning another lash from the darkness, but he didn't falter as he asked, did you ever ask yourself what happened to them? Or why they chose that particular orphanage when there were others closer to home? Or why they didn't just bother to leave you to die if they hated you so much? And then there begs the question of why it was my cousin, Bellatrix Lestrange, that was chosen to be your carer. If you ask me, pup, it's almost like someone else was manipulating fate with what happened next, someone other than Dumbledore.
Bellatrix loves me, Hadrian hissed, but Sirius could see the tears actually forming in the eyes of the Slytherin king. She protected me, told me the truth about my magic, helped me to tame the power given to me by this mark and gave me a family. That's 1,000 times more than anyone else bothered to do.
Hadrian, Sirius sighed, now lowering his wand from where he'd been holding it up at his godson. I get that Bella loves you. Believe me, the one thing she's desired for as long as I've known her is a child of her own, and that's okay. I also get that she made you strong, and that's okay too. But tell me something. How old were you when you actually consented to accepting the mark? I've had it, Hadrian began, but stopped as he recalled what Bellatrix had said when explaining the story of his past to those who had now served and obeyed him.
Flashback start. His relatives didn't want him. They dumped him on the steps of Wool's orphanage barely 2 hours after they'd found him. It was then that the soul of Acheron found Hadrian and promised him protection and power if he agreed to accept the fate of being the son of darkness.
Flashback end. Well? Asked Sirius, bringing Hadrian out of his reverie. I've had it since I was dumped there, Hadrian answered, but, hold on, something's not right here. What do you mean? Asked Sirius, watching as Hadrian moved his fingers to the mark's tips on his body before he began to speak again. I've always known that I made a promise to Acheron, my father, to become his heir, and I kept that promise. Hadrian's brow was now furrowed as he added, and I knew that I promised myself that I would accept my fate, but I was just a baby then. How could I have done this? And that promise? Sure, my relatives abandoned me, but was that enough to condemn my soul? What are you doing, Hadrian? Looking up from where he was still on his train of thought, Hadrian's eyes widened while Sirius turned, his wand raised at the sight of Acheron now standing in front of him, his dark gaze piercing Hadrian's soul as the Black Kaiser, the Slytherin king, watched him warily. You have your shot at vengeance, Acheron hissed, his voice reverberating off the walls of the shack as he explained. Here stands your parents' murderer, the one who made you what you have become today. Why do you not kill him? Because he knows I'm not responsible for his parents' demise, Sirius explained, earning a flash of Acheron's hand in response. However, when the magic hit Sirius, nothing happened. Instead, with a cold grin of his own, Sirius reached under his robe and withdrew a silver medallion set in the shape of an inverted crucifix mounted on a pentagram. Sorry, Acheron, Sirius insisted, watching as the Dark Master turned on him, but when I escaped Azkaban, I made a note to visit my old home, loathed as I was to go there, and pick up a few things. Like this. The Black Medallion, one of the few items in the world that is immune to the powers of darkness that you bestow on those who become your heirs.
Black, snarled Acheron, his glare returning to Hadrian as he asked, are you actually going to let him defeat me, Hadrian? After all I've given you. All I promised you. This was our deal, remember? Rather than remain in the Shadow Realm and rule, I allowed you to come back to the mortal realm to avenge your family. But you didn't tell me that Sirius was the innocent one, Hadrian insisted, his voice tinged with rage as he asked. In fact, there's a lot about what you've told me and given me that doesn't add up. Like, how does a baby promise a big evil like you that he will forsake his future to become a son of darkness? Or just how did I wind up in Wool's orphanage? And then there's the Dursleys. Hate them though I do. It's always been suspicious to me that they wound up broken vegetables in some mental home, almost like someone didn't want me to have any other option but to remain in the shadows.
Hadrian, Acheron warned him, but the Slytherin king wasn't done there. And that's another thing, Hadrian insisted, being all-powerful as you are, how is it that you've never told me exactly why Voldemort went after my family in the first place? Why is it that everything you've done to me and given me seems more like something, well, like it's part of the plan? What do you really want, Acheron? I won't close my eyes to the truth any longer. Maybe it was because a part of me liked what you gave me, or maybe I was just too far in the illusion to see it, I don't know, but now I want answers.
Acheron gave a seething hiss before he let out a sound like he was sighing with a smile on his face. As Hadrian watched, the Dark Master gave a small chuckle that erupted into full-blown laughter before he shook his dark head.
You want answers? He asked, his voice filled with amusement and laughter as he added, after all this time, my errant son, you want to know the reason for everything? You want to know why I chose you and molded you into my heir apparent? Yes. Very well, Acheron sniggered, I'll tell you. Firstly, though you seem to be rapidly approaching such a conclusion yourself, I'll tell you. Yes, Hadrian, I didn't offer you the mark that spawns itself on your back, I gave it to you, knowing that it would feed on the darkness that dwells within all mortals and make you stronger. I didn't happen to find Bellatrix Lestrange, she was already in Azkaban and pleading for a second chance. Funny what a woman like her will do when there's a child involved. As for the orphanage, I knew that it was steeped in darkness from when Tom Riddle was there as a child. With the right actions and the correct twists of fate, I knew you'd become just as dark, and then some, as he was.
You used me, Hadrian scowled, feeling the darkness coalesce in his hand.
I saved you, Acheron replied, his voice edged by sincerity as he explained. The prophecy surrounding your rising wasn't made on the day of your birth, but rather the day that Riddle fell to the strange power that protected you. The power the Dark Lord knows not, as another seer once told a senile old fool. Another prophecy? Asked Hadrian. Yes, Acheron answered, clearing his throat before he began to speak with an ominous chanting tone. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches. Born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the seventh month dies. And the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have power the Dark Lord knows not. And either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord will be born as the seventh month dies. Hadrian fell silent as the words reverberated in his ears, his heart suddenly feeling colder and darker than ever before, while Acheron continued. The one who made it doesn't remember making the prophecy thanks to Albus Dumbledore wiping her memories, but the prophecy still existed. You, Hadrian, were born at the death of the seventh month, or the end of July, and in his mind, Dumbledore saw you as the one who would bring about the end of the dark. And let me guess, Hadrian hissed, you couldn't allow this to happen? Oh, I could have allowed it, Acheron replied. I could have allowed a mere child to grow up in abusive care, get rescued by a world where he's idolized and cherished as a hero, and gone on many insane, nail-biting adventures only to destroy the dark and then, in the process, die himself at the hand of one he trusted more than anybody else. What? Dumbledore, answered Acheron, he would have killed you as soon as you ensured the final end of Lord Voldemort's reign. In his mind, there can be no one more powerful than him, and so he would have used that as leverage, making up an excuse that you had become the next Dark Lord, to kill you or see you dead and Riddle weakened. Either way. Dumbledore wins, Hadrian hissed, the darkness building up around him once more as he snarled, and I lose, again. So why, Acheron? Why me? I suppose you could say, Acheron replied, almost sorry with his words as he explained, like Dumbledore, I believe that you fit the description of the chosen one best, but in the state that you were in at the moment, you wouldn't be ready for the real power, not like you are now. He robbed me of my home, Hadrian remarked, almost quoting a phrase from Acheron's prophecy as he added, and this power the Dark Lord knows not, you thought it could be the power of darkness. I did. You still used me, Hadrian hissed, his voice tinged by pure darkness as he added, an innocent child. If you really were a benevolent spirit, you could have saved me by making sure I was away from that hell. I could have had a normal life, a normal family, I could have been great. Greater than you are now? Asked Acheron, folding his arms as he explained, face facts, Hadrian. You owe me and now I am here to collect. To truly ascend to the throne, you have no choice. You may have used others to wield the knife that robbed many of their lives before, but now you have to kill someone and ascend to the power of darkness. And, for your insolence and failure to follow through on your promise to me, I choose the death you will bring. Albus Dumbledore. Hadrian's eyes widened before he smiled coldly and laughed. You're giving me what I want in exchange for the throne. I am, Acheron replied, but when you kill him, it will be as a true demon lord and not as this human you are now. I let you come back to Hogwarts under the assumption that you would finally make that last great step and prove yourself worthy of my power, but now, I am leaving you with no choice. You will kill Albus Dumbledore by the winter solstice or, Hadrian James Potter, I will claim your soul and then, for added insurance for what you've done, I will kill your precious brotherhood. Hadrian's eyes turned black as he watched Acheron fade away into nothingness, the power of the darkness coursing through him with the threat of his allies being targeted because of him. Caught in this state as he was, the Slytherin king barely heard Sirius' voice. What are you going to do now? Wind howled through the night, carrying a scent that was about to change the world. With the wind, thunder rumbled and clashed with the elemental force of lightning that resulted in a bright laser-like explosion of light and sound fill the skies, rain battering the walls of Hogwarts while the darkness was clear to anyone who could see, hear and feel its presence, much like the dark-robed figure that, in the dead of night, moved towards a certain golden phoenix statue. Hadrian Potter, the Black Kaiser and Slytherin king, moved with determination and a feeling of finality inside him as he made his way towards the statue, his almost silent footsteps echoing through the corridor with a deafening boom that resonated through him. His hands, calm and relaxed by his sides, seemed to glow with the fury of the dark magic that he felt inside him, his mind focused solely on the objective of this night. This one last thing before, well before the end, the death of Albus Dumbledore. All tasks at hand have been completed, Hadrian thought to himself, not even bothering to adjust his path or his attitude as he mused. I have nothing left to regret or plan. Everything I've done is done in the name of the future. Both mine, and those I call my friends.
Stopping before the statue, the Slytherin king closed his eyes for a moment, a smile breaking through his cold demeanor as he thought of the humor and fun that he'd had since first setting foot onto the Hogwarts Express 3 years back. It seemed silly that all his plans and dominations would lead to this one moment, but then again, it seemed to bring it all full circle at the same time.
By losing his parents to Voldemort, Hadrian had started down this path alone and now, at the end, just days from the winter solstice deadline issued to him by that monster, Acheron, Hadrian was determined to finish it alone. He had no desire to go back. His plans had been made, the insurance policies taken care of and the future of his legacy through the Brotherhood and through this school decided. Now, the end was here, and unlike others of his age and lesser power than he held, Hadrian knew that he was ready. He said so. I'm ready to die. With those words, the trigger words told to him over many months ago when he'd come into his power, the darkness enveloped Hadrian fully, taking the human Slytherin king and, ever so slowly, transforming him into the true Acheron heir. The real Black Kaiser, Pansy, Draco and Blaise knew as soon as they felt the respected surges of dark magic that bound them to Hadrian flare up that his time had come. Within the Slytherin dormitory, the Dark Trinity sat alone, each of them recalling their own private meetings with Hadrian back when he'd shared with them the results of his meeting with Sirius Black. Each of them knew that there would be no changing his mind when he told them what the end result would be, though only Draco and Pansy knew that Hadrian had a way out. They, along with one other member of the Brotherhood, knew that Hadrian, despite his cold demeanor, was actually doing this for them and to save them from a fate worse than death. Even as the dark magic that bound them to Hadrian's service started to lift, his final gift to them that he'd promised would be awarded on the day he embraced his fate, Pansy felt her heart grow colder than cold as she remembered her last meeting with her lord. Flashback start. 1 month earlier, Hadrian, you wanted to see me? The Slytherin king looked up at Pansy as she entered his dormitory, her eyes taking in the fact that they were alone. No Draco, no Blaise, not even Neville or Hermione. Just them. Yes, Pansy, Hadrian replied, his voice devoid of coldness and hostility. In fact, dare she think it, but the Slytherin queen couldn't help but think that her boyfriend sounded more like a normal 13-year-old as he told her, "Come in. I need to speak to you."
Regarding the final stage, you mean? Asked Pansy, using the term that Hadrian had shared with the Brotherhood for the inevitable act he would perform. It's okay. I understand that this may be the last time we see you, but.
No, Hadrian retorted, now looking up at her and, for only the second time since she'd first met him, Pansy had to gasp as she saw a tear rolling down Hadrian's cheek. Before she could ask what was wrong with him, Hadrian rose from the bed and, crossing the room, he closed the door before he turned to face her, his voice once more ice-like as he told her, "This is something different from there. I have a request of you. The last one that you will need to obey from the Slytherin king." "You know I'll do anything you say, Hadrian," Pansy argued, earning a smile from Hadrian before she asked, "What is it?" "It's the Brotherhood," Hadrian explained, his voice calm again as he addressed her. "After the final stage, as you all know already, I'll free you from the binds that tie you to my fate as Acheron's son. However, as you yourself said, I won't be coming back here. For this reason, I've decided to appoint you, Draco, Hermione and Neville as joint co-leaders of the Brotherhood and, as my consort, I wanted you to know firsthand because I want you to do anything and everything you can to ensure people never forget how I've changed Slytherin. You can count on me, Hadrian." Pansy smiled, before she gasped as the Slytherin king took her hand in his and, lifting it to his lips, he brushed his lips against her knuckles, a soft smile crossing his face. "I know I can," Hadrian replied, his voice as soft as a serpent's hiss before he told her, "Ever since our first encounter and your one and only mistake, I've known that. It's why I chose you to stand at my side and take the mantle of Slytherin Queen to this king. You never abandoned me or left me alone and, for that, I thank you. Now, once the final stage is over and done with, I want you to do me one more thing." Anything," Pansy stammered, then aware of the fear that she was feeling as she saw Hadrian's darker side disappear only to be replaced by a boy who knew what he wanted. "Be magnificent," Hadrian told her, "and be happy, Pansy. The final stage will be our end, but it won't be yours. So please, for me, be happy." Then, before Pansy could answer his request, Hadrian leaned in close, his lips brushing against hers in a key of raw passion, promise and eternal gratitude that had Pansy going weak at the knees. By the time her consciousness and her sense of being caught up with her, Hadrian was already gone, but Pansy could still feel his lips pressed against hers, his scent and taste lingering on her for a long time afterwards. Flashback end, I never realized it until now, Pansy thought to herself, watching as Draco checked a watch on his wrist while Blaise made an effort to straighten the bed that Hadrian had slept in all those nights in Slytherin, but he was saying more than I thought. He was saying, goodbye. Much like that first key that he'd given her, Pansy felt her tears roll down her cheeks at the thought of her soon-to-be ex-boyfriend's sacrifice. For their own greater good and for the sake of their future. A future that he himself had sacrificed to achieve the ultimate revenge. Across the school's building and within Gryffindor Tower, Neville Longbottom, Seamus Finnegan and Hermione Lestrange also felt the stirrings of their bonds to Hadrian being released, this being doubly true for Neville as he looked to a forlorn, almost grieving Hermione as she felt her honorary brother's presence leave her magic behind. More to the point, though, Neville felt the stirrings of his mentor and Ali's magic leaving him from the effects of what Hadrian had said to him on the last time that they'd talked. Flashback start. 1 week earlier, all tasks at hand were now close to completion. Hadrian had visited Diggory and had him promise to continue looking out for Ginny as well as Luna and everyone else in the Brotherhood. Unlike the rest of them, Hadrian didn't bind Diggory to his service. He didn't see the point with the final stage coming up. However, on the Friday before his plan was put into effect, Hadrian asked Neville to meet him up on the astronomy tower, the Dark Apprentice finding that they were alone up there, the Black Kaiser and Slytherin King leaning casually against the wall, looking out over the autumnal sunset, the radiant shades of red and gold almost silhouetted against his dark form. Bowing his head as he always did in his presence, Neville asked, "You summoned me, Master?" "Stop calling me that," Hadrian replied coldly, his eyes looking at Neville with a mix of warning and actual friendship as he told him, "As of right now, Neville, I am no longer your master and you shall not address me as such anymore. I asked you here to first relinquish you as my apprentice and disciple." "How come?" asked Neville. "Because of the final stage." "Yes," Hadrian answered, "afterwards, it will fall to you and the inner circle to keep the Brotherhood as strong as we have been. I've already told Pansy and Draco that they will take the head of the Brotherhood and now all that remains is to deal with the last of my insurgents from the light, namely you and Lucian. I'm speaking to him afterwards, but before I do, there's one last order I want you to obey. What? Hermione, answered Hadrian, I want your word, Neville Franklin Longbottom, that you will look after her and keep her safe, strong and in the know that she will never lose what we had as siblings. Can you do that for me? A feeling of dread filled Neville's heart as he nodded his head, his voice almost breaking as he asked, How can you be so calm about this? You know what the final stage will do to you and yet you're still going ahead with it. There'll be nothing left for me once I embrace his lineage once and for all, Hadrian explained curtly, his voice like ice as he walked towards Neville, clearly with the intention to leave him there as he added, My life was never really my own. So I will do what I have been born to do and embrace my dark nature. Afterwards, well, I leave that to the decisions made by the wheels of set in motion. You sound like Luna, chuckled Neville, earning a snigger from Hadrian before he added, Hadrian, please. Let us help you through this. Maybe we can still save you. Hadrian just patted his shoulder warmly before he took off down the stairs, his voice echoing up to Neville with a hint of warmth and eternal gratitude. You already did. Flashback end. What did he mean by that? Wondered Neville, moving from his seat to put his arm around Hermione, her soft gaze looking up at him before she hugged him warmly, her eyes closed tight while tears stained Neville's robe. I know, he whispered, petting her hair gently while he checked the time, waiting for the inevitable. I hated too, but we had our orders. While one side of the Brotherhood were in anticipation of the steps to come and another were in a state of grief and sadness for what they were to lose, up in Ravenclaw Tower, Luna Lovegood and Lucian Drake just sat with apathetic expressions on their faces, both of them staring into the flames while they too felt the receding of Hadrian's magical bonds to them. Oh Hadrian, Luna whispered, earning a glance from the former Dark Lord as she spoke with a haunting tone. The price you're going to pay for being lead into this destiny is a dear one, but it is a necessary one for the future that you envision. A future we can face together, Miss Luna, Lucian remarked, taking the girl's hand and, unlike others, feeling and seeing no signs of tears or remorse from Luna. Instead, she just looked to him with a soft smile before she asked, Are you going to do it? What he asked you to do? One day, Lucian answered, his voice edged by truth as he told her, For now, we wait. Yes, Luna agreed, closing her eyes before she lay her head in Lucian's lap, the reborn soul of the former Dark Lord now returning her smile as he stroked her hair gently. All the while remembering his last conversation with his reason for being alive. Flashback. 3 days ago, so you're still going ahead with it? Hadrian looked up from his seat at the edge of the Black Lake, his eyes rather apathetic as he looked upon Lucian, the eyes of the former Dark Lord filled with curiosity as he added, You can try to hide it from them, but I know what you're going to do. I suppose, perhaps because I used to be Riddle, but I've always known what you would do if you were driven to it. You know this won't be easy for me, Hadrian argued, clenching his fist as he explained, as he said, Drake, I've never actually killed anyone myself and now I'm expected to kill the man responsible for sending your other self after my parents in the first place. Once that's done, things will change. But there's one thing that won't. What's that? Riddle, answered Hadrian, now rising from the ground before he turned and pressed his hand against the trunk of the tree. Leaning in close to Lucian as he explained, he will find a way to come back sooner or later and, this time, my power won't be there to give the source of his return a life of their own. That's why you should let me do this, Lucian argued, earning a raised eyebrow from Hadrian. I owe you my life, Hadrian. To repay that debt, I'll do anything you say. Just tell me. Give orders and use me like you have before. Should I perhaps use some dark spell to end this? Or go after him myself? Play as a double for your act? Tell me, I'll do anything you want. In that case, Hadrian answered, you can do me one thing, Lucian. When Riddle comes back, you will hunt him down and destroy him yourself. His Horcruxes are now completely obliterated and he'll be weak and defenseless. So find him, take him down and ensure that our friends have a future. Do that and your debt to me will be repaid in full. But, Lucian began, before he watched as Hadrian turned away, staring up into the wintry sky overhead before he asked, I still don't get it, Hadrian. Why are you so willing to go ahead like this? Because, Hadrian answered, his voice hauntingly normal sounding as he explained, the only ones who should kill are those prepared to be killed. Flashback end, I know what you're going to do, Hadrian, Lucian thought, clenching his own fists as he felt the rage and sorrow of his decisions rise up in him, and for that, I promise you, I will grant your wish. If I meet him again, Tom Riddle will die, and this time, it's for the last time. I'm ready to die. As soon as the words left Hadrian's lips, he doubled over with a cold pain that rose up in his heart, the feel of the darkness around him only intensifying as he felt his body shift and contort, his magic exploding from within him as his core became overpowered by the true power of the Mark of Acheron. On his back, said mark spread like a virus through his veins and arteries, turning his clothes into the ferociously spiked armor that he'd worn several times over, the armor now emphasized by a pair of serrated-edged steel wings, the tips of the wings like daggers as they spread out from behind his back. As the armor covered his arms, Hadrian let out a cry as his hands and fingers were transformed into two sets of talon-tipped claws, the razor edge of the talons humming with dark magic while the feel of the darkness fueled them like new blood in Hadrian's veins. Within the darkness of the helmet worn by Hadrian, the demonic visage transformed until it resembled a metallic cowl, the facial space matching Acheron's as it was replaced by hollow, empty, hungry darkness. His transformation complete, the new Hadrian moved towards the statue and, with a single wave of his hand, he managed to melt the statue into little more than a pool of molten gold, the hiss of acidic disintegration filling the hall as Hadrian spread his wings and rose into the air, flying up through the passage until he reached the doorway to Dumbledore's office. Without waiting for any sign of an invitation, the Black Kaiser lifted his right hand and, from the center of his talon-tipped palm, a black flame flew from his skin and incinerated the door, earning a loud shriek from a beautiful-looking red phoenix while, behind an ornate desk, Albus Dumbledore looked up, his eyes edged by pain and sorrow as he spoke to the dark-winged figure before him. "Good evening, Hadrian. I take it that we have no real need for introductions, do we, Prince Acheron?" "You won't talk your way out this time, old fool," snarled Hadrian, his voice so cold and dark that it would put a certain other armored Dark Lord to shame. "The time has come for answers, Dumbledore. You think your precious little prophecy will stop me, but you're mistaken. This time, the choice is mine. I know what I must do." "Yes," agreed Dumbledore, setting down his quill before he sighed, "Shame really. I would rather have preferred to die on the field of battle." With shock in his expression, Hadrian's cowl-tipped helmet folded back, revealing a gaunt, pale face with black veins that attached the armor to his face, his eyes as black as night while his jaws had fangs in them. Think Venom, Eddie in Spider-Man 3 as he asked, "You mean you knew what I was going to do?" "I knew this moment would come sooner or later," Dumbledore answered, linking his fingers before he added, "but I had no idea that it would come with such malice behind it. Your knowledge always did scare me, Harry. But not as much as the fear of losing someone else to the consuming darkness we all have inside us. And yet you didn't seem to mind sacrificing my family for your precious greater good?" asked Hadrian, snarling like the demon he had become as he insisted. "You are the one who caused everything to happen as it did, Dumbledore. If your stupid drunken witch hadn't made that bloody lie, my family would still be alive, but no, Albus F. King Dumbledore will do anything he has to and say it's for the greater good." "I confess," Dumbledore agreed, lifting his hands in surrender, "it was not one of my brighter moments, but everything I have tried to do since then, I did because I wanted to believe in you, Harry." "Well, you've lost it," Hadrian remarked, his helmet shifting back into place as he growled, "and now, Albus Dumbledore, I am going to kill you for what you took from me." With that, he let his right hand dart outwards, a volley of black lightning firing from the armor where, at the same time, Dumbledore flew over his desk, his wand in his hand. As the destruction rained down around them, Dumbledore shook his head before he told the Black Kaiser, "I never got the chance to tell you this, dear boy, but I hope it shows you that you don't have to do this." "What do you mean?" asked Hadrian, using the darkness to change the shards of Dumbledore's desk into solid diamond, the power of the Black Kaiser now launching those shards at the old man, who deflected them with a pretty powerful shield, turning the diamond into sand that fell to the ground like snowfall. "It is not your actions that define you, Harry," Dumbledore told him, "it is your choices and you deserve the right to choose." "I do choose," Hadrian hissed, going with a new assault as he summoned several black orbs from the nothingness around them, launching them at Dumbledore, who once again managed to dodge the assaults. Hadrian continued, "I choose my own path and my own destiny. And if that destiny means becoming Lord of the Shadows, then so be it. Where the orbs had hit at the objects around Dumbledore's office, the old man saw that they encased their targets in a thick, sludge-like substance, freezing them in place and unable to move or escape their fate. Seeing the dark power in Hadrian's hands, Dumbledore sighed before he turned to face the Black Kaiser. Only a true Dark Lord would deal in absolutes like this, Harry. But if you're forcing my hand, then I will do what I must. You will try, Hadrian snarled, watching as Dumbledore flicked the wand in his hand and, from a basin in the corner of his office, Dumbledore's pensieve. The old man summoned a torrent of water that he launched at the Black Kaiser, Hadrian using the darkness to counter the assault by freezing the water. At the same time, the Black Kaiser released his dark power in its fullest form, using the same power that he had done on Rosier Sr. to snare Dumbledore's old heart and nerves in his grip. As soon as the power hit him, Dumbledore gasped with pain and fire, feeling his bones and nerves burn up to the point where he could bear it no longer. "How does it feel, you manipulative old bastard of a mortal?" asked Hadrian, his fingers splayed with the power of the tormenting curse being inflicted on Dumbledore's body. "To know that you've come so close to death and that nobody's going to save you. Maybe now you understand the pain of others whom you try to destroy for your bullshit greater good." "Harry," Dumbledore gasped, letting out a groan of pain as he was forced into a stiffened, almost stretched sensation, his body feeling like the ancient execution art of dismemberment by horses was being performed on him. "My name," hissed the Black Kaiser, "is Hadrian Acheron, and you, Dumbledore, are the final step I need to become the monster that your actions gave life to. Enjoy the rewards you've clearly sought." Then, with a crushing gesture from his hands, Hadrian used the darkness to rip Dumbledore's wand from his grip, several fierce, painful-looking lacerations appearing on the man's skin as Hadrian snarled, "You deserve this. Remember that." "Ha, Drian, forgive me," Dumbledore gasped, before the lacerations grew to new sizes and, rather than answer, Hadrian splayed his fingers once more, tearing Dumbledore's body apart and leaving nothing more than a blood-spattered mess and sinews of skin all over the room. "I don't forgive," Hadrian scowled, lowering his hand while he also lowered himself down and, from within a pool of blood and gore, he pulled Dumbledore's wand out by its hilt, "and I never forget my enemies." As he wrapped his talon-tipped hand around the wand in his hand, Hadrian's helmet once more parted, revealing the face of the Black Kaiser before the wand began to glow, its brightness forcing the rest of the demon in Hadrian to be released, revealing the young boy underneath, his dark eyes taking in the results of his work. "Now," he whispered, holding the wand in his hand, "for the final stage." Then, just as the sound of rushing footsteps reached his ears, Hadrian flamed out of the office, leaving a sorrowful Fawkes the Phoenix to welcome the staff of Hogwarts to the destruction that they saw before them. 2 days till the winter solstice. Boy who lived really a Dark Lord. Dumbledore slain by Savior. By Rita Skeeter. Yes, dear readers, it grieves me as it will many of you to report this sad, horrifying turn of events. Harry James Potter, 13.5 years old, student of Hogwarts and slayer of he who must not be named, has taken the life of Albus Dumbledore. Though nobody can fully understand the magic used by Dark Lord Potter in his murderous assault and destructive fury against the headmaster, it is undeniable that he is behind the attack, as Aurors and Unspeakables found magical signatures belonging to Dark Lord Potter all over the office of the late headmaster. A tragic turn of events to say the least, but while Hogwarts mourns and the magical world lies in fear, our beloved minister, Cornelius Fudge, had this to say. "Harry Potter has shown his true colors and, therefore, I feel no disgrace in offering whatever is required of the one who brings this murderer to justice, dead or alive. Any price is payable for the murderer of our beloved Chief Warlock and the Lord of Light. It seems that the boy who lived is now the new you-know-who, but the question remains, who will find him?" For more information on Harry Potter, see page 3. For an in-depth interview with the staff of Hogwarts, see page 2. For reactions from friends and family, see pages 4 to 7. Hadrian felt a smile creep onto his face as he witnessed the result of his work. Sure, it was a rough and tumble sort of result, but now, officially speaking, all tasks at hand were truly completed. All that remained was one final movement. Emerging from the shadows where he'd hidden himself away until the time was right, Hadrian passed through a steel gate and along a narrow, rocky path towards a site where 2 headstones lay undisturbed and unseen by those who didn't know where to find them.
Stopping before the headstones, Hadrian drew the wand that he'd taken from Dumbledore and, waving it once, he conjured 2 bouquets of flowers that he set down on the grave sites before taking a step back and, with no remorse or regret, he let the wand drop to the floor. As it settled by his side, Hadrian stepped forwards and, kneeling down, he bowed his head, his voice low as he spoke to the graves before him. The graves of Lily and James Potter. I don't know if you can hear me, Hadrian remarked, his voice cold, but gentle as he spoke, but I want you to know that this was my only path and that, when we meet again, if we meet again, you understand that everything I've done was to free myself from lies and manipulations.
A feeling of cold passed over the graveyard before Hadrian smiled softly, lifting his head as though holding in some sort of pride about his actions. His voice edged by determination as he explained, I don't regret killing Dumbledore. That was one thing I had wanted since the beginning, with or without Acheron's help. He took you from me, him and his prophecy, so in the end, the greater good was served and justice was dealt. I'm sorry that my hand did the deed, of course, but I won't mourn such a monster.
The cold seemed to pass over Hadrian now before the Black Kaiser smiled and, rising from in front of the graves, he sighed before he added, looks like I'm out of time. Then, it's okay, I don't have any regrets and I know that, somewhere, very deep in your souls, I know you understand why this had to be done.
The graves stood silent. Hadrian just smiled before he whispered softly, I'm ready now. Just as the words left his mouth, Hadrian's smile was replaced by a look of absolute pain as he felt warm wetness trail down his chest. Looking down, Hadrian saw his own red blood running down his chest, staining the ground in his hands. With a smile, the Black Kaiser turned and, seeing his attacker, he whispered softly, thank you. Then, with eyes closed as though accepting his fate, Hadrian Acheron Potter fell to the ground, leaving his attacker to emerge from the shadows, the wand of Albus Dumbledore smoking from where he'd struck out at Hadrian. Just like you planned it, Sirius Black muttered, his eyes edged by tears as he added, now you can be at peace, Harry. Flashback start. Halloween night. What are you going to do now? Hadrian shook his head with a mix of dismay and fear as he paced back and forth in the shrieking shack. His expression a mix of fear and doubt as he answered, I don't know. He's given me no way out of this. I don't want to let him win, Sirius, but there's nothing I can do. If I don't kill Dumbledore, then he'll take my friends away from me. Friends? Asked Sirius, not tools? Pawns? Weapons? No, Hadrian answered, friends, and maybe it's the old me talking here, but I feel a need to save them from him, but the only way to do that is to kill Dumbledore myself. No one else can do it. No, Hadrian answered, Acheron would know and given he's after my life, then. He suddenly trailed off, his eyes widening before, to Sirius' horror. A laugh escaped Hadrian that was a mix of human and demon. The darkness seemingly gathering around the Black Kaiser before he chuckled, could I do it? It's one way out, and I'd be free, but, who, why, how? Care to share? Asked Sirius, earning a look from Hadrian that turned into an expression of realization. Of course, he whispered, turning to face Sirius with that same wolfish smile. There's no one else, it makes sense.
What does? Asked Sirius. You, Hadrian answered, almost trembling with a mix of adrenaline and wonder as he explained, you're the only one who can do it, Sirius. Once they learn I've killed him, the hatred of the entire world will be focused on me. The school will probably close until they can find a new headmaster or headmistress, but in the meantime, they'll want something that only a few can get. Revenge.
Revenge? Asked Sirius, earning a nod from Hadrian.
Sirius Black, Hadrian suddenly commanded, his voice edged by desire as he told him, you have to do it.
What? You have to promise me, as the Black Kaiser, I commanded of you. What? Asked Sirius, feeling the pull of his family's dark legacy draw him to obey Hadrian's wish, whatever it is. You have to kill me, Hadrian explained, earning a wide-eyed look from Sirius, but as he tried to deny that he would, the Black family magic rose in him and forced him to listen as Hadrian explained. Once I kill Dumbledore, you will give me 2 days to let the rest of the world know what I've done, during which time the minister will offer a reward for the capture of Dumbledore's killer, dead or alive. Then, you'll come to Mum and Dad's grave and, when you hear me say the words I'm ready now, you'll do it. You have no choice. But why? Asked Sirius. This way, Hadrian explained, the Brotherhood will be safe and Acheron can't come for me. If I'm dead, my soul will pass beyond the veil and leave him without an heir to call the Son of Darkness. Plus, people believe you to have betrayed my family beforehand. Now you will do it for the sake of honoring my parents' legacy and avenging an old friend. I'll set it up so that Pettigrew is captured and, because their hatred will be directed at me, you'll be able to claim that reward as a full pardon for what you allegedly did. Hadrian, the Slytherin king, shook his head before he moved towards Sirius and, putting a hand on his godfather's shoulder, he spoke gently as he told him, all my life, I've been the result of someone else pulling the strings. Let me make this choice myself. Besides, you know what they say. Sirius shook his head, earning another sigh from Hadrian before he looked right into Sirius' eyes as he told him. The only ones who should kill are those who are prepared to be killed. Flashback end. And you were, Sirius whispered, looking down at the blood-soaked body of his godson, the pool of crimson running into the ground that stood before his parents' graves, so brave, and so stupid at the same time, but at least now you can be at peace, Harry. Committing the image to memory, Sirius took the liberty of using the wand that had once been Hadrian's to dig a grave next to his parents, before he buried the body and carved a new headstone in place of the two that had been shattered by Hadrian's body falling to the ground. Here lies Lily, James and Harry Potter, a family of warriors and friends reunited. Living proof that even the smallest light shines in the darkness. Then, with his work done, Sirius turned on the spot and vanished, off to claim his reward for what he'd done for the sake of justice. For the sake of the light, but most of all, most importantly of all, for the sake of his godson's soul. His mind echoing Harry's final thought to him as a reminder of what people were truly capable of. In the end, the only ones who should kill are those who are prepared to be killed. To be continued. I hope you enjoyed this story. Also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.